Hello and welcome. We are live now, and you have missed all of the random chaos behind the scenes. So sorry, but take my word for it, it was super fun and awkward. There was food involved though, so everything's forgiven. We've got several people doing all sorts of fantastic cooking, including Tom is running a smoker filled with chicken and pork loin, and Charlie and Brian are raising bread and doing all sorts of goodness. So here we are today in the middle of our chaos, and we're going to talk about editing, which seems kind of actually appropriate for editing. Editing, I feel like maybe I'm just speaking from personal experience. But after I write the initial document, whether we're talking a manuscript or we're talking an article or a report or an essay, after I finish that and then it's time to edit, I already want to be done with the finished product so I can move on. I want that dopamine hit. And instead, I've now got to edit. And it feels almost like I'm in a swirling storm of desire to go ahead and finish it, but also a desire for it to be really good so I'll be proud of the work. And that is the storm I live in while I edit. I don't know about the rest of y'all. So anyway, that is what we're going to talk about today, editing. I hope you're into editing, and if you're not, maybe we can convince you to be into editing. Here we are, the lovely Cat, the fantastic Tom, the fantabulous Charlie, and the inimitable Laura.
Hey.
And periodically a rock. And a Sasha.
Read a thesaurus as a child? You better believe I did. Anyway.
I mean, that sounds like fun time in all honesty. I think I tried, and then people were like, stop, please.
I did not let other people know. I secretly read it in classes in middle school with a highlighter. I highlighted all my favorite words. And just kept it stashed in my backpack. Nobody knew what I was reading while I was just holding my backpack. It just it's nobody's business. This is my secret reading. Everybody thought I was reading illicit things.
I mean, if we're having our word nerd confessional time, I remember at one point in my life reading through both the Oxford English Dictionary and the Webster's Dictionary at the same time so I could compare and contrast their definitions.
Nice. Any opinions you'd like to share with the class?
Oddly, I disagreed with most of them.
Okay, cool.
I found the Webster's, at least when I was a kid. I don't know what it reads like today, but it was oddly self-referential, which is what a dictionary definition is not supposed to be.
You know, I had a very similar impression of Webster's, so
yeah.
And that is why it is not my favorite. No offense to people who are like, but I own the Webster's.
I got mine as a gift.
I'm mortgaged to Webster's, you know.
They gave us a nice one, a nice hardback one, and all of our teachers came in and signed them, from all the grades, not just the high school. So our kindergarten teachers came in and signed them. So, I have a dictionary that's literally just an autograph thing of my teachers.
You made it through.
Yep, and I got it because I was on the honor roll. Because I was in the top 17.
Nice.
I will never forget graduation day from high school, and Mr. McDonough, my favorite teacher that I had 3 times for different classes throughout my years there, walk up to me, grab my shoulder in that avuncular way of just look into my eyes and go, "I can't believe you're here. I can't believe you're here. How did you make it?"
Speaking of books you may want to use as self-defense.
It even has medical stuff in here. I just ruined that page.
Yours is way better than mine.
Here. And starting your tool collection. It has
that's the rat killer edition.
Yeah.
Buying
insurance.
That will stop a bullet.
A whole table for buying insurance. Presidents of the United States. Places of interest in the United States.
I feel like truly they were just trying to fill the book out so it looked like they had to meet a certain inch requirement.
I feel like they were trying to compete with the Encyclopedia of Cultural Literacy.
Is that by any chance, was that version published in the mid-90s when almanacs were really in fashion?
So this is missing a couple pages, I think. Yeah, it's missing the one page with the date.
I did not know this
Because
was
they didn't want people to know. Yeah, there was
It's
a weird
missing the
period
one
from like
page.
94 to
Why
96.
would somebody tear that page out of all the pages?
I don't know.
There was a shame on there. There's a horror story for you to write. What terrible thing was written on that one
Why would you
page?
tear out the copyright page?
It says
Because-
7/13/81 main line, $49.50. Written in hand on the torn part. But I have a feeling this is not from the 80s, but I don't know.
All right, let's see yours, Kat.
This is
Because
mine.
everybody wants to show theirs off. Okay, yes. Collegiate is by definition a smaller book.
Yeah, there's all the signatures. And then like it's specifically addressed to me.
Very nice.
Who needs a yearbook when you've got a dictionary?
Very
Well,
nice.
it's only teachers signed it.
Yeah,
Other
because why would
students-
you want any of the other people you went to school with to sign things? I don't want to remember these people. Oh, wait, sorry. Personal choice. Your mileage may vary.
Don't you want to remember all your teachers' names so that you don't accidentally use your names when you use their personage as a character, as a villain? So you don't,
Teachers
you know.
that sign these that I have no clue who they are.
See, I was lucky in that
They just went through and signed them all.
for high school, I went to a magnet school, so we had some of the best teachers literally in the state at our school. So I was very lucky with that. And my postgraduate life has been basically in mentorship programs and apprenticeships. So if I forget any of these people's names, they will come and get me.
Mhm. Hi, Cherry. Cherry is here on vacation. How is school going? And Gwenna the winner? Yeah, that one. Gwenna the winner is here. Hello, hello.
Congrats for passing your massage therapy exam.
Oh, very nice.
She's now licensed.
Yay.
Awesome.
Yay.
And Carrie is here and starting dinner. Okay, so lurking a bit. Yes. So Gwenna, what we do is this is more like a podcast where we discuss. We will go for approximately 3 hours, and then after 3 hours, if people are still chatty, we still just it's chaos.
There are breaks.
Yes, there are breaks. So our official, like the format we try to stick to is every hour at the end of the hour or at the beginning of the next hour, we take a 10-minute bio break to also give, especially our introverts, a little time off from people and to give everybody time both in the chat and on the panel to like maybe go get a drink, go get snack, whatever they need. And then when we come back and we do it for another hour and then we do another break. And then by the end of the third hour, we're either wrapping up or we're wandering, meandering off into all sorts of conversations that feel relevant in some way. And that is technically the format. That one day we will actually put into actual podcasts so people could just listen to. Yeah, it ends with chaos every time. I cannot pretend any longer.
I do feel like
Chaos
it's
is
very
kind of mine and
constructive.
Glory's brand. It gets worse when we're together.
It's pretty strong. I think this is actually this wonderful panel I'm super excited about today because every one of us has been through the long dark tea time of editing.
I'm currently doing it.
Every
Well,
one
in
of us
very
has
different modes.
lived in editing hell and editing heaven at various points in our lives. So I think this is actually a really wonderful panel. And also I'm definitely looking forward to sitting back and letting y'all just get whatever off your chest.
Yeah, I really wanted to be here because I've had the misfortune and fortune of working with some of the worst editors that have ever thought that they knew what the English language looked like. Some of the best editors who actually taught me a lot about writing. I've worked with independent editors, I've worked with traditional editors, and I've done a lot of self-editing. And let me just put it to you this way. If you don't know how to do self-editing, don't trust your editors.
Yeah, that was sort of my point about this episode was Yeah, more than likely, most people at some point in their life are going to hire an editor or work with an editor. Like if they did get traditionally published, or even if you're working getting published through a magazine or something, at some point you probably are going to work with an editor. But as a writer, you really do need to be well informed of what quality editing looks like. Otherwise, it could be a traumatic experience. And I want people to be protected from that because creatives need to be inoculated against people who are creativity killers. There are people who truly wish to spread that trauma onto others, and the only way, and you can't protect yourself from ever, knowing someone like that, because you'd be surprised who'll jellyfish you. But if you're inoculated, then when it happens, you're like, wait, this is not about me or my writing. This is like your nonsense. That's and you're inoculated. See what I mean? Like, it's not killing your creativity, and that's what I'm concerned about. As well as, let's be honest, good editing is a joy.
Yes.
And reading well-edited work is an absolute pleasure. It truly feels effortless. When you are reading someone's work that has been properly well-edited, it is a pleasure. And that's when people say things like, this is not my favorite genre, or I'm normally not into this kind of thing, but I really enjoyed this story. And that is how you know something not only had wonderful visionary merit to the story itself, but also was well-edited.
So if I could just start with my nightmare story real quick. I've told it before for a lot of people, but I see some names here that I don't know that have heard it. My first book, when it got picked up, the editor that I was assigned was a misogynistic, homophobic person who just did not know anything about the science fiction genre. But I was new to the industry and was like, this is who I have been assigned. They must know what they're talking about. They must, they know what makes books sell. They know what I'm doing wrong. I guess I should listen, because I did not have the tools necessary to see that the edits that they were doing were harming the book. I mean, the first book that I put out, all but one of the two female characters survived to the end. All of their roles were very, very reduced, which is problematic because one of them was one of the main villains. So the story didn't make sense anymore. And the main romantic subplot, which was the catalyst that made the main character continue doing what they were doing, because they were literally doing it for love, was completely taken out. So you didn't know why they were there. But I did it because I didn't know. I thought, like, you are the editor. You must have the knowledge that will make this book sell and make everyone love it. And I have since gone back and rewritten that book and re-released it after I got the rights back.
I am so reminded of the original Thanos storyline versus what ended up in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, Thanos and Lady Death.
Yep.
Versus what ended up in the MCU of, like, that story so reminds me, like, your story reminds me so much of what, did end up happening. And because, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Thanos' motivations really don't make much sense. They're not strong motivators. But the Lady Death storyline absolutely made sense. And it's such a shame they cut it.
And so this is why it's really important for you to understand what your end goal is, what the end state of editing actually is, what you're trying to produce, and to know as best as you can what steps you need to take to get there, so that when people start making, because yes, it is possible to have a storyline in your book that doesn't need to be there. Like, maybe that romantic subplot doesn't need to be in your book. I've read a lot of books where the romantic subplot did not need to be there. But considering it was the main motivator that kept the hero engaged in the story, because they knew that the person that they were in love with was in danger because she wasn't going to stop fighting. Like, it was how the reluctant hero story worked in that story. So with them no longer being in love, like, why are you here? You just don't, like, they didn't make me take the reluctance out at all. Just the reason that they continue to suffer through all the dangers and stuff going forward.
Kind of like the classic scene of in Star Wars, the original movie, of Han Solo at the very end showing back up in the Millennium Falcon, and this whole, wait, what just happened here? But you realize, later what are the motivations, but it is very much a surprise because they give so weak motivations throughout with the way they edited this movie for that character.
So you need to start finding ways to learn for yourself, what is a strong plot? What is a strong subplot? What is actually a plot hole and what is not? Because I find people use that phrase very incorrectly. And I've recently been trying not to yell and scream into the void of the internet about people that don't know the difference between an unreliable narrator and a plot hole in the book, because those are very different things. When your narrator is unreliable, what they told you wasn't true, so you shouldn't be upset when the thing that they were telling you isn't the thing that was going on. The whole point was you shouldn't have trusted them the whole time. And so understanding the difference in how these words are often misused by a lot of people, especially people that are unfortunately offering editorial services, because that was, I'm not going to say who, but I was watching somebody's video on plot holes on the YouTubes, and they were actually referring to a book with an unreliable narrator. And
I've had editors refer to my story with plot holes, saying it has plot holes, when in fact it was simply they didn't like this genre of story. And when I'm like, please explain what you were saying as a plot hole. And finally, like after 20 minutes of interviewing the editor, finding out, it's because they just absolutely hate this genre. And I'm like, why did you take this job in the first place then?
I once had an editor tell me that the hero using magic at the end of the book, even though they were a wizard the whole time, using magic the whole time, and actually used the similar magic they used earlier in the book and had established that they had a right to use, was a deus ex machina, because you cannot have them save themselves through magic in a fantasy book.
In a fantasy book with magic in it.
With magic in it. Using the same magic that they had used before.
What?
Yep.
Physics.
Yeah.
But I mean, so the way I think of this...
No, Kat, you just have no idea the incompetency that exists in this world.
So
Yes,
You're
that's
so young,
not a
baby.
deus ex machina.
You haven't been out there in the world like we have, unfortunately, because, we didn't have the internet to hold us close when we were little writing babies. We had to go with the industrial complex.
Yeah, if anybody out there has read my book, Shine Like Thunder, the initial editor that I worked with for that book called the end of the book a deus ex machina, because suddenly all of the heroes have superpowers at the end and they're using magic to solve their problems. And I'm just like, they've been using magic the whole time. They're actually using the same
Did they
magic
even read what they edited?
at the beginning.
So this, I feel like, kind of gets to a more proto piece of knowledge we're trying to get across. And it's for everyone who's, getting out of their teens and going into their 20s. And is learning in the adult world, what does being a professional actually mean? And how do you recognize a professional?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Because-
that's one of the things I really wanted to talk about.
Because it's, whenever you hear people talk about traumas of going to a car mechanic or a plumber or an electrician, and how it was such an awful experience, what you're really hearing is, I don't know how to recognize whether someone is a professional in their job or not. And I did not know how to interact to make sure I got professional results.
I would put teachers in here as well.
Yes,
Mhm.
definitely.
If you've ever experienced trauma from a particular teacher, that teacher's not a professional. And I know some people are going to probably have a lot of words for me, and I will probably get some crap in my DMs again. But as a former teacher and librarian, I'm going to tell you right now, no professional teacher, no really, and I mean, we're talking preschool all the way through grad school. No professional teacher is going to cause you trauma, in part because they will be watching you to make sure that you're not misinterpreting what they're trying to communicate with you, because professionals care about being understood correctly. And when you are understood correctly, you are not trying to cause people permanent emotional damage. You are not a comic book villain. You know what I mean? So again, professionals do not work like comic book villains. And everyone else who does is not a professional, no matter that they call themselves that. Yeah, I can call myself a professional. It doesn't make me a professional unless I'm behaving like a professional.
So I have gotten developmental edits from Jace Maxwell twice now. And very professional, love it very much. And like I have trust that they're not going to go and trash talk me to others with my name attached to it. It's like, I trust you. You have been acting very professional, and your notes have been very poignant and not attacking my genre. They're not trying to like put their own vision on it. They're just trying to help make mine stronger.
Right.
Which is what you want from a developmental editor. And it's one of the things that I really respect about him in particular, because he really tries to get into the mindset of what you're trying to do in the book to make that really shine. And so that's number one. Like, when you're looking for professionalism, especially if you're a genre writer, and I know not all of us are, but I see some names in chat that I know are genre writers, make sure they are familiar with your genre. Try to start a conversation about a big thing in the genre. If you're a fantasy writer and they don't know anything about Tolkien, like, you don't have to get specific, right? You don't have to get into the nitty gritty, but if they don't know anything about him, you have to start questioning, like, even if you're not a huge Tolkien fan, if you're a fantasy fan, you are at least have a passing familiarity and an opinion about his work.
One of the things that I use when interviewing an editor, even one that essentially is assigned to me, because I have worked for magazines and newspapers in the past, is I know how, like, I'm familiar enough with my own writing style to kind of be familiar with what kind of nonfiction I write, what kind of fictions I write. And so to talk to my editor about, within essentially the style of writing I'm planning to do or I have already done, and I ask, what is your favorite books or stories in that? You know, whether we're talking memoirist, humorist, or cookbooks, or I'm talking about romance or science fiction or fantasy, I'm going to ask that question. And if I'm not familiar with the story, the books that that editor is referencing, I'm going to go look them up, and I'm going to try to get copies of these books so that I can be familiar with what they love best about that genre or that style of writing. Because I know enough about my own writing now to know I will never write like John Updike, and also I never want to write like John Updike. He can go rot in a private hell. Look, I'm sorry. If you love John Updike, I love you still. But nevertheless, that is not me. And I have had editors who the best books they've ever read were by John Updike. And I'm like, yeah, this is not going to work. Because they keep trying to steer me toward a John Updike. It's not going to work. So again, versus like fantasy writing, if they're referencing Brandon Sanderson, and so what... The editor, I had an editor who's like, his favorite fantasy was Brandon Sanderson. And at the time, my then husband loved Brandon Sanderson. So I just pulled a bunch of Brandon Sanderson off of the shelf and read, like, because I speed read to some degree. And I just skimmed through a bunch of it and was like, okay, let's try. Y'all, the first month, this editor, he kept saying, we need more descriptive text. We need more purple prose. He was trying to make me into Brandon Sanderson. And again, that is not who I am. And also that is not who I want to be. So understanding your editor's favorite versions of your kind of writing, and if you want to go in that direction, are important to know.
And what kind of a writer you are. Because, and I'm not saying who are your influences. I have been writing long enough, and I found this out very early on because people started asking me, especially for one of the two people, you must be a big fan of this person's writing. And I had never read anything by them. It's just my writing style is somewhere between Robert E. Howard and David Eddings. It just is. It's the way I tell stories. And so when I'm talking, especially to an editor, I will bring them up. Like, you don't have to be a fan of either Howard or Eddings to like what I'm doing or even help edit it. But if they think that everything that they did was wrong, they're not going to be able to help me as an editor, because the types of stories I tell, the way I word, I do my dialogue, like when I first read David Eddings, I was heartbroken because I thought I was a special little snowflake that actually like found a way to tell stories that was amazingly original. And then I read Eddings and went, oh my God, I'm this person.
There's nothing original in this world.
Yeah.
There's
But
absolutely nothing. And nobody should be caught up in that. Like, no, don't be original. Be a hack.
But if you know that you have those references that you can give them and get their opinions on them, or at least let them know, because then they can look and see what those professional versions of this style of story look like if they want to look into it. It can actually really help your relationship with your editors, because, you know, it just is my style. If you try to change a lot of the things in the style, the stories don't work as well, because I have kind of a conversational, kind of matter-of-fact way of telling a story. So you have to understand that about your writing, because if they want you to have all of the flowery descriptions or to spend a lot of time in your characters' heads, which is something I do not do. Again, one of the things that makes me very much like Howard and Eddings, in that most of it's more show don't tell in the stories that I do. So an editor that wants me to completely change all that and spend an entire chapter in a character's head where we're getting to know their motivations and their thoughts and their feelings would feel like such an alien chapter in a book that I do. And yes, I've had editors try to encourage me to do that, because it's not the style that I write. Does that mean that my style is perfect? No. But if it's going to feel alien, if you're going to need a coach who have to teach you how to write like someone else for you to tell stories, it's not helping you, it's hurting you in the long run. So being able to know who you're writing like and who they're trying to turn you into when they're trying to do that is so valuable, and really not something that we talk about a lot when we talk about finding an editor.
Now, I will say, on the flip side, one of the best editors I ever have had in my entire life. She was not into fantasy or science fiction. However, she'd already helped me. She was actually one of my college English teachers. She actually had edited all of my essays for her class before I submitted it. You know, we got along really well. But anyway, afterwards, after that semester was over, and yes, of course I got an A, I had asked her if she would help me essentially improve my writing in this fantasy story that I'd written. And she said, well, first off, you should know I don't really read fantasy, so I'm not really that familiar with the genre, but I'll definitely give it a look. And if I have anything to contribute, I will put, my notes in the margin kind of thing. And I was like, thank you. That's really, at the time, actually, what I was mostly concerned about was my grammar and stuff. I felt very weak in my grammar at that point. And what she came back with is, your grammar is actually pretty good. I've just made a few notes on your grammar. As I said, I'm not really into fantasy, but I love what you've written. So I'd like to actually do a sit-down conversation. And she essentially wanted to help me developmental edit it further. And so that editor, a good editor, does not need to be even familiar with your genre to give you truly useful feedback. But it really helps if they like your stuff. Yep. Versus they're just sort of lukewarm about your writing. It's not the best sign. Particularly if they're lukewarm about your writing and they're not familiar with your genre. Like, it's not that one thing is a flag, it's that the combination is a red flag, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, like, I've now read a bunch of Maggie's stories, who writes in a couple different genres, but they're all within sci-fi and fantasy. And I really only comment or, give her notes about the ones that I am familiar with and I enjoy. Like, I love time travel. I like a bit of, sci fantasy and stuff, and I'll go there. But, like, her other ones that are more Tolkien-esque, Sword and Planet, is it who was it that did Mars?
Oh, Edgar Rice Burroughs.
Yeah,
Edgar Rice Burroughs.
It's not Barron's. Yeah.
Yeah, who did more Burroughs style storytelling? Like, it's interesting, but I know it's not within my wheelhouse because I am not the market for this either. So I can't say whether these would actually make it more enjoyable or less enjoyable for the readers who really want this story. Because that's what you're really editing for.
Yes.
Is you're editing for the readers that enjoy this type of story.
Yes.
You know, you don't want to edit a sci-fi story for romance readers if this is not a sci-fi romance.
Yeah.
You're gonna have some very confused readers and probably not very good responses.
So to simplify this down in a way that I think might really be helpful if you don't know where you fit on all this, is look at your work and ask yourself, does it have a narrator or is it just telling the story? Because that's the difference between a lot of this. We're going to give you all the background material. We're going to tell you all of the things that's going on in the course of the story. Is it just, are you reporting the story? Are you very much in the moment and just kind of going through? Or are you presenting the reader with a narrator who is going to explain, oh, here's what this purple plant is that's over here. This is why this is happening this way. Oh, the great long story of this family drama. You know, do you have that kind of thing? Because as much as I love Terry Pratchett and wish I could be Terry Pratchett when I grow up, I am not a narrator writer. He very much was. His narrators always have a very distinct voice, and they're telling you a story more than you're finding out about the events that are happening in the story that you're being told. The narrator is one of the most intriguing parts of a Terry Pratchett book, and ties into the story they're telling. But if you're not a narrator writer, when they're trying to get you to add all of that narration story into it with that very distinct narrator voice, that might not be the kind of story that you tell. They may be trying to change you as a writer, and that's one of the easiest ways to tell if they're trying to fiddle with you and they don't understand who you are as a writer. Because we get stuck on this idea of writing style, like it's my writing voice, this precious thing. And no, your writing voice is just, do you like using adjectives? Do you not like using adjectives? How often do you use them? How flowery are they? How grotesque is the violence that takes place in your story? How sweet is the romance? So like, these are the things that we're talking about when we're talking about voice. The actual style of writing really does boil down to, is it a lot of narration or not?
What's
You know,
your
are you
perspective?
writing? Yeah.
Is it first person, second person, or third person omniscient? Could you at some point in your story use the line, little did they know?
No,
Because that's third person omniscient, where you know everything about them, and your narrator could tell you everything about this character if they chose to. Versus that first person where you're always speaking from the internal dialogue in that person's head, or second person where you only witness what all these characters are doing and you're not sure about their emotional motivations.
So to stick with fantasy for a minute, just to give you a sense of what I'm talking about when I'm saying your narration style, Tolkien was writing as if these were discovered medieval manuscripts that were in translation. That is the style that they are written in. That is the voice that they are written in. And if you tried to turn that into something else, it wouldn't feel like Tolkien. This is one of the big problems with putting him in translation, whether it's in movie or any other form, is it loses that antiquities feel that the original text has, because it really does feel like, oh, somebody found this dusty tome and translated it for me, and it's been around for a while. Whereas someone like a Robert Jordan from The Wheel of Time, he knows everything about the world. He is the biggest fanboy of his own world, and is going to stop periodically and explain to you the beautiful brocade and what the pattern in the brocade is, so that you understand the richness of the culture that you are dealing with. That's a very different narration style that I personally don't have. Brandon Sanderson is going to go off on long vistas. I can tell he's a sightseer. He loves going places and just looking at things. I could not tell you half the events of the Arclight trilogy, but I can tell you everywhere that they stood and looked out longingly onto the horizon for an extended period of time, because he spends so much time on that. And if that's your thing, great. Like, I'm not knocking it, but he loves that description of the setting and the place and everything.
It's like, get to a plot, Brandon.
But
I'm
those are
sorry.
different.
It's just the triggered trauma of my marriage just was coming back for a minute. I apologize.
But those are different styles of writing. When you read N.K. Jemisin, she's writing in first person, in second person, and third person, but you're very intimate. You're in the mind of the person that's there. You do not find out anything that the narrator does not know. They're not going to stop and tell you why something's happening, because if they didn't experience it, they don't know. It's very intimate. It's very close, especially if you've read the Broken Earth series. It's very close in. So what kind of writer are you? Because the worst editors I've ever worked with did not realize, I'm a very matter of fact, I'm very pulpy kind of writer, which is why I bring up Robert E. Howard a lot. It's very, here's the story, let's go on an adventure and have some fun. And I'm not spending a lot of that other time doing the things that Brandon Sanderson would, or Robert Jordan would do, or any of these other people. And once you know that about your own writing, you can see when they're trying to turn you into one of those other types of writers that is foreign to your writing. And that's, trust me, if you're not careful, an editor will try, a bad editor especially, will try to turn you into a different kind of writer and make you doubt everything about your own everything. And those are all perfectly valid, which is why I picked big.
I'm telling you right now, your relationship with an editor is more intimate than most people's marriages.
Yeah.
And especially I say that
found out formerly
married. Yes, Tom's point was about during the early pandemic. Remember, we all heard about all these divorces happening, and
within weeks of lockdown.
Tom was like, "You've been locked together for 2 or 3 weeks, and you can't handle the person you're married to for 10 or more years. Did y'all just never spend much time together? How did this work?" Megan says, "I have no idea what my writing style is like. I need to write more to figure it out. Also, reading more to figure out your writing style."
Yes.
You will. Okay, so when you are reading a wide variety of writing styles, at some point you will read something and it's not necessarily in your genre or your non-genre. But there's something about it will click and you'll be like, my God, it's like they're talking inside my head. It's the same things I think all the time. And that is a clue that this author, this writer, because it could be an article even, has a similar writing style to you. So I would suggest at that point that you look up what else they've written and kind of delve in. But you can find somebody's writing style outside of your kind of writing and finally hone in on, wait, I write like this. And then from there, once you have a writer that writes similar to you, you can then do research, including on possibly Wikipedia, if there's a Wikipedia page about that writer, to help you find out more about their writing style. Look, humans are not actually that diverse. We've all got these squishy brains, and they're wired approximately similar. So there's not as much variation as, say, if dogs could write. Or cats. Cats probably would mostly be writing about how they want to kill everything, I assume. But anyway. But my point just being, no, there's nothing original anymore. There's just too many people to have existed on the planet for there to be anything wholly original. So more than likely, there's not even just one person who's written in the past like you. There's probably hundreds of people. You just haven't come across it. Maybe because the last person to write like you died 20 years prior, or you're just not into the kind of genres that most of the people who write like you tended to write. It's just a matter of finding it. So, also you could ask friends and avid readers. Most people have at least one or two friends who are crazy constant reading. They talk about they read multiple books a week kind of people. Most people know at least one person like that, if not multiple people.
That used to be them.
Yeah.
I used to read a book.
Send them a sample of something you've written and ask, hey, does this seem familiar to anyone else you've ever read? To help you hunt down who you write to give you a clue about your writing style. So once you know your writing style, you can then tell editors, what is your writing style? And then honestly, it will help prevent a lot of editors from trying to steer your writing style to something that doesn't feel natural for you.
I've
By the way, just say
Because I kind of get that way with Wally Lamb books. Okay, then. So, writing in the style of Wally Lamb. It doesn't have to be the same genre to be that kind of writing style, that voice. Yeah, let's see. Gwyneth says, if your editor is more intimate than your marriage, that's a rough marriage. Yeah, honey.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tom, would you like to say your part? I feel weird.
But yeah, it turns out most marriages don't talk to each other about very personal, intimate subjects requiring lots of trust.
Yeah.
Hashtag the straights are not okay.
Very much.
I mean, but I'm going to tell you, seriously, I've had more than a few editors that, yes, the one that was my former English teacher, y'all, if she and I had not both been married, that would have become something a bit more romantic. Because when you find someone you just connect with over your writing, there are plenty of editors and readers who, when they read your stuff, they're like, I just feel so connected with you. And it's like, beware, a romance may start. I've had a couple readers who also, about my sex column, were like, oh, you're married. Oh, darn. Well, here's my phone number in case that doesn't work out. And I'm like, what? But yeah, look, readers are very much I will marry you. This is, yes, you speak in my heart. Yes. So look, but editors, it's a very intimate relationship because the writer and the editor have to have this trust.
Yeah.
A serious trust of, you're not trying to subvert me or change me. You appreciate me for who I am, but also you will guide me and you will help tone me to be better at the thing I wish to excel at. It's an intimate working relationship. Always not wrong, Chair.
And because of the intimacy of the relationship, it can have all of the same pitfalls that a romantic relationship would have. And you have to really be careful and mindful of it. Because if they're trying to change you, look, if your editor ever makes you feel like you are not good enough as a writer, they are a bad editor. Because number one, we're not here to make art. If you're here to make art, more power to you. But the actual business is a business. And as long as 50 Shades of Grey exists, you can write anything with any quality and make it in this industry. It's not about talent. And I don't mean to say that to cut anybody down, but if your editor doesn't understand, this isn't a talent-based industry. It's telling a story that strikes a chord with enough people that they want to experience that story.
Which does remind me, here is a phrase you never want to hear from an editor or a writer.
What you got?
I just want to write literature, or I just work with literature. I don't really work with genre or contemporary. If they use the word literature, which is a designation given by a profession, by a group, an external group, about
usually
work. Usually academic. It is not something a person makes. Frankenstein or Modern Prometheus was not written to be literature. It was a horror gothic story.
If you ever want to have fun, go back and read contemporary reviews of Jane Austen.
No!
They talk about her like the chick lit writers were talked about in the 90s and early 2000s. They talk about her in the worst possible ways. If you were to read those reviews and not know who Jane Austen was, you'd be like, well, no one's ever going to remember her or her books. Because they were just like, who is this silly girl writing these silly stories about women?
Literature.
So condescending.
A designation of literature is trying to say this is culturally influential and in a way that we want it to be. We wish as a culture to aspire to this cultural influence. Do you see how I'm just layering more and more pomp onto this? But that is when someone is saying this is literature, they're saying this is the pinnacle of our culture. And you cannot do this accurately unless you are doing it in retrospect. Such as Austen is literature now because Austen has influenced so much culture in the English speaking world and even the non English speaking world now because of the advent of movies and other easier to translate media like TV shows and so on. Jane Austen's novels have become literature around the globe because of that, but not in her lifetime, which was regrettably short, because it wasn't yet that influential. It gained momentum over the decades.
Tolkien
So
was
when
not
somebody
literature.
is alive saying, I only write literature or I only edit literature, they are full of crap. Because you need a solid 40 to 50 years after something has been written for it to influence enough culture to gain momentum.
Like, I mean, sure, like, again, look up in the first 20 years of publication, The Lord of the Rings, and all the remarks people made about the Lord of the Rings series.
Tolkien himself referred to them as little fairy stories.
Yes.
And if you want to hear people that are like considered literature today talking about this, just look up any of Ursula K. Le Guin's talks about the literati and literature, because she was shocked and aghast to be in this in this company, because she's just like, I wrote stories that I liked, that I thought meant something to me. I wasn't trying to like change the world. Like, and the problem is half my books are crap because I was stupid when I wrote them. So I don't know why you're paying attention to me. Like, she is so honest about this phrase literature that should give a lot of us hope in a way. Because
beware of any editor or writer that speaks about literature, because that is something
like they can talk about it in the
hindsight.
past tense of like, yes, Tolkien is literature now, Austen is literature now, but only because it's had decades and in some cases centuries to influence culture. So yes, it has. It's like saying memes, you know, things that influence culture.
Shakespeare and the dick jokes.
Oh, so many codpiece jokes. So many codpiece jokes that my mother had to teach me what a codpiece was and why it mattered so much in all of these Italian location-specific Shakespeare stories.
I would say Shakespeare really taught the power of sex jokes.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's pretty much, if they are making any allusion to something furry, round, or bushy, that is women's sex jokes. If it is something tall and thin and skinny, that is male, or also horns.
So the biggest argument that I've gotten into lately is I have gotten into a bit of a tiff with a friend of mine, because my argument is that Shakespeare created the original MCU because he was able to write things that people that wanted to be high-minded could go off on philosophical debates and talk about, as well as stuff that you could just sit there and giggle and go, did you see the dumb joke? Did you see the dumb joke?
Yeah, water cooler jokes.
Yeah. And that's to me the true brilliance of Shakespeare, is he wrote
something for the box seats as well as for the standing only in the theater. I think it's a good point, that it's good to have overarching sort of emotional arcs going, as well as a lot of dick jokes.
Because you don't know,
but you
don't know what will be
considered
considered
literature. To
literature.
know your style.
Mm-hmm.
I failed.
You failed, Laura. Not enough moss and sword jokes.
Yeah, apparently.
Oh dear. Is it time for another revision?
No!
On that theme, though, Laura, who would have thought that Rod Serling would be seen as almost a literary figure now?
I know, I'm absolutely shocked.
The Twilight Zone and those stories that Rod Serling worked on are so foundational to our sense of horror, of thriller, of so many genres just kind of spew out of what he did with the Twilight Zone, that, he was very clear that he was making a fun little show to kind of, titillate and upset people a little bit. Like, he wasn't trying to change the world. He wasn't trying to do anything big. But today, you can't escape his shadow if you're writing certain kinds of stories, because They were either popularized on the Twilight Zone, originated on the Twilight Zone, or codified all of the tropes that are inherent and must-haves in the genre today. And you can't see that about your own work. You will have no idea if you're doing that. That is not a conscious thing that you can do. Tolkien wrote The Lord of the Rings because he created several fictional languages and thought it was a really bad shame that there was nothing to do with them. So he wrote stories so that he could use his actual hobby, which was like
it is the equivalent of writing fiction so that you could like spread your cookbook recipes.
Yeah, that's
out
exactly
in the world, and that is pretty much what Tolkien did, and good for him. You know, better to he kept him off the streets. It's fine.
Isn't that the origin of Cozy Mysteries? Of just I want people to cook.
I love the reader thing of eating foods appropriate to the story you're reading. I think it is so it's immersive. I love it. It's one of my personal favorite activities. So I'm not here to like poo-poo it. I'm here to eat with the story, which I guess is why a lot of food is discussed in my stories. Give you an idea of what you should be preparing for the next chapter. How about we take a little bio break? Again, I would like to point out what a wonderful time to make sure you have a snack. Have you had water today? Have you had enough water? How about tea? If you've had enough
raspberry lemonade count?
Absolutely.
Yay.
Absolutely.
Oh, yay, a bot.
Oh, a bot. So, on that note, we're going to take a little 10-minute bio break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about self-editing. Because this panel knows all about that. So, buckle up, Buttercup.
And there's a lot of tips and tricks to it.
Oh, yes. Me. 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 Oh.
So before we go into self-editing,
Sure,
can I
sure.
make a comment about professional editing?
Absolutely.
So I write a lot of drabbles, and with drabbles, you can take shortcuts because you don't have
Right.
the word. It's like you're stuck with 100 words. So a lot of times I don't even know the gender of my main character. So Jace was able to go through and for my longer pieces be like, you're taking these shortcuts from your drabble style? That's not gonna fly here. I was like, dang it, you're right. So
good points.
Yeah, they can call you out and have very valid points. Like they can understand where you're coming from and see where it does work with what you're doing, but show you where it's not going to fly.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Oh, I absolutely love a good working editor relationship. They are so useful. Like, and that there are so many different kinds of editors. You know, from developmental to line edit. There's so many kinds of editors. And yesterday, Charlie was talking about a desire for a diagnostic editor, which I feel like should really be like a new classification for editors. Is, you know, I will diagnose the problems.
Because after our discussion, Ryan was like, "So what's the big deal?" And so I completely spoiled book 2 of Blinded Angels for him, and he laughed. And I was like, "Yeah, you laughed. I laughed. I think that that's the funniest, most logical possible ending for that book." But we are also the same age, into the same things, and I don't know if anybody else will get the joke.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's an entire book predicated on a punchline that is
a long walk, is it?
You can explain it to me later.
That hopefully
I'm perfectly
works.
fine with spoilers.
That hopefully
I love
works.
Spoilers.
And it works in context, but it is a dumb supernatural romance story in the vein of Charmed. Like, that's really what I think about while I'm working on this story. So it has all of the ridiculousness that you would expect from a season finale episode of Charmed.
You are definitely talking to your market here.
Yeah.
I too have obsessively watched Charmed back when I had TiVo in the mid 2000s. I know way too much about Charmed, and even the bad years, I was still watching the reruns. And they were bad. They made Buffy look developed and polished. That's how bad Charmed got.
Charmed is my favorite trash fire, especially when Kaylee Cuoco got brought in because, oops, we need another sister.
Like, yeah, like how many? And then I made the mistake of complaining about this to a friend of mine who.
Oh no, Cherry, it's not that I don't think that millennials
between her father and mother, I think she has approximately 20 half siblings. This friend of mine, and she at the time had only found 6 of them. And she was like, "But that you're literally describing my life and calling it unbelievable." And I'm like, "I'm gonna shut up." I was like, "Do you think you and your half siblings will start?"
You're the outlier.
She was the only one who was adopted and raised by her biological father's father and his second wife, because her biological father's mother had already passed away. So, yeah. But yeah, like I think I've lost count, but I know she's up to like 18 to 21 half siblings. They're actually using, and this is not like one of those sperm donation scandals.
No,
This is
a
her.
gift received from
Both of her
Mother's
biological parents just did this naturally across the country. They were both sort of wandering
children.
folks.
I have a friend who's up to 43 half siblings because they keep coming out of the woodwork. And it's got the point where they're actually debating, like, do we even do the tests anymore? Like, do we just take people at their word? Like, nobody would willingly be, like, trying to scam this family to be a member of it. But, Cherry, it's not that I'm concerned that people would not understand, like, the millennials don't know Charmed or would be in for this kind of just ridiculous end that book has. It's there's so many moving parts that go into making it to pull it off the way that it gets pulled off, that it either needs a serious developmental editor or it needs somebody to help pretty it up. And that's the problem when going to an editorial service. I don't want to pay money for a developmental editor that would come back and just say it doesn't need anything. And while Jace, I know, would refund the money, like, because I know him, he's that kind of a person, be like, there's no work for me to do here. I feel guilty taking your money. I don't want to waste his time on, because I know he would give the money back, right? So I don't want to waste his time if I actually did figure out the plot right, if the plot actually does work. And that's the issue, is that intermediary stage of which levels of editing does this need? Does it just need a polish? Does it need the language?
A volunteer's tribute for $5. There, you won't feel guilty.
There we go.
But
I
this is
feel
what I'm-
like, Charlie, some of your concerns have been addressed. I'm
Versus,
not saying don't keep talking about your concerns, but I'm just saying, like, you are not talking people out of it. You are only
No.
talking our group into it.
I'm saying the issue that I have with the editorial agencies.
I think it's a more common issue with writers. Yeah. It's not just you who's experiencing this.
Because, like, when I finished Raid, my concern was, does the story work? I think the story works. I've worked really hard at working out all the kinks in the plot so that the twist ending works. Because I have a bad habit of doing twist endings. Just have a problem.
What a twist!
I do a lot of,
Here we go, Megan. My Asiago bake.
Nice. And so I'm always concerned that I need a developmental pass on any story. And so being able to have somebody do a diagnostic read and be like, okay, what this needs is, and actually lay out the actual services like that it would require, because maybe my language is all crap for the story and I need to have that level of editing. Maybe it's just the grammar needs a little bit of touching up and some kind of proofreading because I misused some commas or something. You know, that diagnostic, if you've never gone through the editing process, by the time you're done, you have read the book so much, the words have lost all meaning. It is a string of meaningless text that is just floating in front of you like those screens in the Matrix. It's just random gibberish floating in front of you. You know what the story is supposed to say, but it doesn't impact you anymore. You have no emotional connection to it anymore because you've read that one line 20 times because you've gone through and changed it a little bit here and a little bit there to the point where you might not even be able to remember what the original wording is. And that's what I was really looking for, is somebody who could do that diagnostic. A GP for editors, basically. Here's the story doc. Do I need to go to a specialist or not?
maybe that's what I should start advertising myself as, because that's usually what I do for Glory with movies. Is once we finish watching a movie, I'll tell Glory, all right, do you want to hear my alternate version?
So there is a name for it. According to Reedsy, it's called editorial assessment. And this is their definition. An editorial assessment is an extremely valuable first overview of your manuscript by a professional editor. Your editor will read through the entire manuscript and provide thoughtful, in-depth feedback concerning elements such as plot, characterization, structure, consistency, and style. Feedback from an editorial assessment can lead to significant changes to your manuscript. The assessment will identify your book's strengths and weaknesses and help you devise a revision strategy that dramatically improves the execution of your idea.
And most editors don't offer one.
Yeah.
No, they don't.
Because, like, Glory last night was watching, was it Cinema Therapy? about the movie Split. And just even this therapist did not have a good understanding about how DID actually functions with as we now know it. And you can tell the writer and everyone involved in this, I also had no idea how DID actually worked.
As well as the actor. Ewan something?
Avery, or
Avery, I don't know.
yeah, young Professor
Something
X.
Scottish? I don't know.
Young
Wasn't
Professor
it James
X.
McAvoy?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one.
James McAvoy. Yeah.
Irish? I
Of-
don't know.
And I was like, all right, but say, you want to actually, you still want to make this story. This is the story you've gotten, you put a lot of effort in it, and you still want it. It's like, I can make one change to this whole story, and it'll work, and people won't complain. But I don't know if they ever would. And it's the only way you would have a character, the main character in that movie, act the way they act in a believable way without having to just rewrite the whole thing, is you'd have to put them under constant threat and stress. And the first thing I could think of is, if you put them in World War II and have them in an Anne Frank situation where...
Why are you giving away the story I want you to write me?
Because ain't no one else going to write this story. I'm not worried.
So here's his pitch. And I was like, yes, now write me this story.
And that is, if the main character was in an Anne Frank situation, like the actual person, hiding in between the walls, and that was the character who was kidnapping other people and putting them into cages, and they were also dealing with DID, then you would see all these behaviors you see in this movie. Because they never feel safe.
The
they
cannibalism.
are always on edge.
I don't understand why people are obsessed with cannibalism.
People are weird.
Particularly Jews don't do cannibalism.
Yeah. But I mean, I would just say, it has to be that kind of where you never know, where you can never feel safe in a war situation. Then you would have someone acting this random. Versus this person was very safe and secure in their home. They were not that worried about people invading their space and entirely removing every form of safety they have. They wouldn't act this way. That is the big problem of this movie. This person's external motivators are wrong. And that's what I usually do. When after we'll finish a movie, that was again what I'm talking to Larry about.
Tom, that is what you've done for me. That's what you do for so many people. You do editorial assessment.
When we watch The Matrix, again, all right, we like the story. What are the elements though that we would need to make sure to show that it stays believable because humans, or Glory's big problem with what was it, Hunger Games, of parents don't act this way. People don't act this way about children. You'd have to change so many other elements of society for them to be okay with this.
Yeah, so what I was saying is, you're randomly pulling out of lots for children in every region to go die. And they know they die because everybody grows up being forced to watch this show. There would be riots. And I guarantee you, after the first generation, there would, if they had not already uprose, they would successfully riot. Look at the French Revolution. They were all sure they were safe too, but no. You get enough people mad for long enough of, why should I raise these children if they're then going to be taken off for slaughter? What is the point of it? And that nihilism will make people riot and violently riot. So no, it's not 75 years of this. No, people do not act this way. It's unbelievable. There is my issue. It should have frankly been within the first 20 years, and this being a promise of, we'll stop if you all are obedient enough, versus 3 to 4 generations. No, this is absolutely not believable. The motivations don't work.
I know I've been reading a lot of theory books lately, but all I'm hearing is you have not succumbed to postmodern nihilism, where everyone is always the worst at every possible time. Because that's what those movies are. That's the whole Zack Snyder thing. That's an entire mood.
But even that is a fantasy.
Yeah.
Zack Snyder has no understanding of human psychology.
Yep.
I literally got a freaking degree in this. Like, I was forced to study humans. I did not do it willingly. And then I had to study dolphins. Don't ask. It wasn't by choice.
But this is an issue with this whole postmodern nihilism that has gotten into fiction, that you don't, the assumption is all humans always behave the worst way possible at every time. Hi, CB. And that has colored a lot of these stories to where they don't make sense if you actually try to put a human being in there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to give away the ending. I will probably tell Kat.
I am fully expecting after the show to get spoilers.
So, actually, kind of talking about the what was it called? Something assessor?
Editorial assessment.
Editorial assessment. That is sort of what self-editing is about.
Mm-hmm.
Is and why people talk about to do any decent editing on your work. It's usually good to give yourself, depending on your memory and the way it works, between a week to several months before you start editing your own writing.
Yep.
Because you need to look at it from an external point of view. As instead of being the person who's writing this and creating the story, as someone now receiving the story, how do you feel about it?
This is actually one of those times where I would say having ADHD or being neurodivergent can be an advantage, because one of the side effects of ADHD is, like, people talk about ADHD doesn't have object permanence. This is not actually true. But we do forget things, and it can give us fresh eyes if you just give it a little time and, sleep.
By the way, I think we just traumatized Heather.
Hi, Heather. I know that was actually the point of the YouTube title. It's a joke. It's meant to, why is editing important? Look at this title. It's such a trash fire. That was the fun of it. We did giggle a lot when we were choosing the title. So, but my point just being, like, look, more than likely you are neurodivergent if you can stand me talking for more than 5 minutes. So, hey, you have an advantage over neurotypical people in that you are more likely to have an easier time forgetting the specifics of your story if you just give it a couple days of good sleep and do not pick up your story at all for like a week or two. When you re-look at your story, you will have semi-fresh eyes so that you can look at it more objectively, like as if you were a reader reading it for the first time.
See, I do have ADHD, but I don't get that with my Like, I'm at the point I don't want to read my stories ever again.
Why?
I've been working on this collection for 2 years now, and I just want to be done.
At a certain point, that is the other part of editing. At a certain point, you have to just let it go. Nobody, even in the professional world, catches every grammatical error or every plot hole in any story.
I know that this is...
Look, even Heather, who is a very professional editor.
Yes.
And has worked in multiple formats as editor. Is like, you sometimes you just have to step away for a little while, more than a week or two. Like, yes, I have heard about editors prescribing their writers to step away from a manuscript for upwards of 3 whole months and, like, go to the beach or go to the mountains or do something you love and stop thinking about your story. Like,
well, it's not just one story. That's the thing. I just keep adding. I was adding and adding and adding, and now it's just snowballed into this big thing. And so now I am going through and chipping away at it with the developmental edits. And I've done all of the smaller pieces, and all that's left is the big one that's intimidating me. It's like, no!
I fully recognize that this is the boldest and bravest thing that I could ever say as a writer. But if you don't hate your book by the time you're done editing it, you probably didn't edit it enough. Like the love will come back at some point, but there's always a breaking point where it's like, dear God, do I have to read this one more time?
Yeah, I usually get there around 50th revision.
And that is, I know from my own experience, it is a common thing. I can look back at certain books that I have out. Like I can look back at Shine, which I was talking about earlier, and I have a certain affection for that book. When that book came out, dear God, I hated everything about it, every word about it, because I had read and teased out every word so many times. It was a meaningless drip of text at that point. And I literally shelved it for a little while before it came out, so I could have that distance to not be like, I don't know, I did a thing. Rah! Because
You sounded like that whole meme that I'm Eloise.
Yeah.
I'm on the 6th floor.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
So here's just a quick piece of psychology and being human. And from everything I've seen, it doesn't vary that much, but it's a good thing to know. Your brain and body consider normal whatever is the average of the last 6 weeks of your life. Occasionally, for some people, it's between 5.5 and 7 weeks, but in general, it's around 6 weeks, and that's why it's essentially take 3 months or a season off, because the way you think will be different in 3 months.
And you'll come back with fresh attitude, fresh mindset.
And if all you're seeing is, letters on a page and there's no meaning left, there's no emotional punch left, drop it or publish it.
Yeah, you sometimes just have to let it go. You just have to let it out into the world.
Just chuck it out into the world.
Look,
Throw it out.
Need it.
Yeah,
I
maybe
need
they're
to
either gonna fry
incorporate
or it's gonna go
Jace's
flat.
notes. I can't let him down.
First of all, no, that should never be a concern
No.
in any of this. Like,
And your editor shouldn't be like, but what about my feelings? No.
Also, we know Jace, and Jace will be fine with this.
yeah, and so whether
It's like,
it's
should I just cut the story out, or should I actually work on it before it's due for the line editor November 1st?
whatever feels like is the best thing for you as a business person. This is why I always go back to this. I love the art. I love the craft of writing. This is a business. If it is causing you to not want to do your job, which is to show up and write, kill it. It's dead. Put it in a drawer somewhere. Maybe come back and visit it later.
In a couple years.
Yeah.
Don't forget, what was it? Neil Gaiman's strategy of how many different versions of American Gods are there? Because every time they publish it, he puts in or takes out some more stuff, and as he edits it again.
Put in and taken out one chapter 3 different times in 3 different versions, editions of American Gods. It's like, Neil, you need to find peace. Like,
or let that be your piece. If you want to have the 5 million versions of Blade Runner, right? Do the 5 million versions of Blade Runner. And I really love that the version that they call the final cut is actually the second to the last version that he did to it, but they decided to roll back the last revision because, oh God.
And you can totally just publish this version. And when you're feeling up to, look at, if you end up cutting that story, okay, you can, when you do the second edition of it, put the story in if you feel like, no, it works better if I keep the story in there.
Because that's what editions are for.
This is the joy of indie publishing.
Yeah.
Is you can make these executive decisions, and then here's the thing: just like executives, you change your mind later, and it's like, oh, it's a value added new edition. It's like, yeah,
a couple people have gotten the alpha edition. Kat, and I think I sent it to Maggie, have the alpha edition for the complete rewrite I'm doing of my book, The Chain. And it's because I'm actually writing book 2 in that series. And I hate certain things about book 1. There was a character that got cut out that I feel like should be put back in there. And because this is my business and I want that character is going to be so prominent in book 2, I'm putting him back in book 1. And you have the complete power to do that. And when I started mentioning that, fans of that book were like, wait, there's more? Because they're looking at this as like the director's cut of the book is about to come out.
The line you put at the top of the book is revised and updated.
Yeah,
Yep. Amen. That is the money phrase. The phrase that pays.
because certain
Why
things,
must do.
because like I really need to work on what everybody else saw as a romance plot. I don't know how I'm going to deal with that because we haven't gotten to that part of the rewrite yet. Because I really don't fall in love with a serial killer, y'all. Just stop falling in love with serial killers. I feel like working on this edit right now is so topical.
Have you ever been on TikTok?
Yes, that's why I feel like this edit is so topical right now.
God. Now
Because
it's become a metacultural conversation.
the biggest argument I've had with people is that they see the serial killer as somebody that, but we can change him. No, you can't.
If you give them a backstory, the readers will fall in love with the character. Don't give the monsters backstories if you don't want them to fall in love.
So, but am I worried that I'm putting out a very different version? Like this book, our main character Nathan stays in Pennsylvania for quite some time. In the original book, he's in there for literally the first couple paragraphs of the book where you find out why he's coming back to Maryland. We're actually having him stay because all of the stuff that happened off camera in the original edition of the book is now in the book. My audience is really excited because they want to know, how did he talk Castle into coming down? How did that go down? Where did the money come from to fund all of the things that they're doing? You can actually build excitement off of those second editions. So don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
Just because the thing, I hate to keep harping on it, but this is a business, and you have to think about it as a business. If you're getting to the point where you don't want to work on your book anymore, you have to make the business decision. Do you shelve the whole thing to get some space from it, or do you just set it free into the world? My solution has generally been at that point to set it free and to find out that all of my fears were in my head.
Yep. Honestly, that's been my experience too, of when I'm so sick of it, I never want to read it again. That means it's time to publish, because all that's happening is I'm locked into a perfectionist cycle. Mm-hmm. Where I don't have the knowledge or the skills to fix the one nagging thing or the multiple nagging things. And so I'm just in a loop of my own destruction. And so it's like, this is as good as it's going to get for the next year, which means send it to the publisher. Bye. So like that's, but part of that is learning your own process. You are still learning your process, Laura. Yeah. And that, I think, is what's partly causing you distress, is you don't know Laura's process fully. You haven't gotten to this stage, whatever this stage is, enough times to start seeing a pattern in your own thought process or your own behavior.
Like, it's just this one story feels like a boulder, and I don't have spoons to dig at it.
Then let it go. No one who reads the book who wasn't an alpha reader will ever know it wasn't included in the end product. It's just, will the end product be fine without that story?
Nobody knows that Remus was in the original book.
Yeah, me too, Kat. I heard it. It was just like, I heard that groan, that little cry in Laura's heart. That was like, I don't know. I am too frazzled.
We really need to have a banner that's like Charlie's Trips into Cliche Land. But to use a wonderful cliche here, everything that you're doing, it's, you know how we like to say it's like riding a bike? No, writing is not like riding a bike. Writing is teaching your child to ride a bike. You're not afraid that you're going to fall over and skin your knee. You're afraid that your kid is going to fall over and skin your knee, and you don't want to let go of the bike.
And never want to get back on a bike.
You want to run next to them the whole time and never let go, so the bike never falls over. And that's that everyone has that fear. You'll have that fear in some form every time you go to publish.
Yeah.
But that book will either go out into the world and sell you a whole bunch of books, or it'll go out into the world and no one will remember it. And you know what's great about that? If it's a bomb, if it's a stinker, no one will remember it.
But the internet is forever.
No,
it's not.
No, the internet has gotten too big to be forever now, because the internet can't hold this amount of memory. It turns out.
Okay, challenge to anybody that's out there. If you can find a copy of, because I know it actually exists in one place, I believe, because they have not heeded my cease and desist order, of my book, Faraun. You may be able to find 2 chapters of it that were posted to a site illicitly without my permission. But the entire book is gone. It is completely erased from the internet with the exception of literally the 2 good chapters that somebody cut out and put up online.
All of my sex column articles are gone from the internet, except for a couple of the articles were lifted and put on illicit websites without my permission and were not even credited to me. But if anyone on the internet can ever find them, send me proof. I will send a prize, because the internet is not forever anymore. I dare anyone to find any of my copies of any article I've ever written on the internet. I dare you to find it, because I can't even find them.
And that's how I know that
there.
The internet is not forever, because the actual published version of that book, there is not a version of it anywhere. The version that I have been able to find, that I did put out a cease and desist because they did have it up for money. And I don't like people making money off of stuff that's not mine. But it was actually the chapter that we had cut out and handed out as a literal physical handout at a convention that somebody had scanned in.
So
the internet is not forever. The internet.
The nice thing about books that don't do well is you can always try new marketing things with them. Absolutely.
Yep. And there's a lot even in Trade Pub where every 5 years they will put a new picture and a new title on the same book. Especially
they don't even re-edit it.
Yeah.
So I just watched yesterday a video about there's a movie out there. It's on Netflix now. And this movie has been rebranded 3 times as The Poltergeist of Broly Forest, and then retitled as American Poltergeist 2. There was no one when this was made. And then like Love Comes for All or something like that. Like, I don't know. It was so weird.
I mean,
there's like no poltergeist in it.
Yeah, they do it for movies. They do it for books. They've always done this. Yeah. It's just the internet now has a little bit more memory where they can kind of go, wait, is this the same one? And if someone did happen to take note, they'll remark it. But the general internet has no idea.
Yeah, because while, yes, it can hurt your ego if you put a book out that doesn't do very well. Yeah, I'm not going to deny that that's not a thing. But if you go back, spruce it up, fix it up, do actual edits to it, like don't just like recycle it, but actually try to figure out why didn't this hit, make it better, put it back out with new branding. I had a book flop on me because it had the wrong cover. That was all that was wrong with it. The cover sucked. We put it back out with a different cover because we realized every time people saw the cover, their nose did this little crinkle thing. And that's all it took.
One of the reasons I picked up.
Go on.
One of the reasons I picked up the Chronicles of St. Mary's is the rebranded cover is beautiful.
Yeah, so like, don't worry about it. Like, for me, that perfectionist mental trap is a flag of for me.
Yep.
About hold up, I'm in a loop, which means I either I'm anxious and I'm just obsessing, or I don't have the skills to address this. So I now need to decide, does this get shelved or does this get published? And here's the thing. I will be honest with you. When I was a little baby photographer, all right, technically I was once like, got my first camera from my mom when I was 7. And, but when I was a new digital photographer, there were plenty of pictures that I'm like, it doesn't quite work. I did it wrong. There's no way to fix this. But I didn't throw it away because, as you all remember, I had this witch stop me on the street when I was a teenager in Oxford, Mississippi, and pretty much put a geist over me that I could never throw out my old stuff. And so it was only recently, what was it? I think it was actually like less than 5 years ago. I went back and looked at photos I had taken 12, 15 years prior. Photos that I was going to throw out, but, was like, no, I'll throw them out later, da-da-da. And I went back and looked and was like, oh, I knew how to fix them. And I literally just right then, it took me 3 minutes to fix this picture. that had vexed me for 8 months when I had taken the picture. And I was like, Tom, come look at it. And he's like, oh, you fixed it. I knew you'd get there. And I'm like, you mean 12 years and a whole new Adobe Photoshop software? And he's like, what does it matter? It's fine. And it looked great. It looked exactly the way I had envisioned it. Don't worry about it. Like, yeah, that one I shelved because I didn't have the skill to fix it. And also at the time I had nowhere to publish it anyway. It was just for my own edification. But in my writing, it's very much a publish or shelve. I'll come back to it when I have more skill or I know what to do with it. Don't sweat it. Don't be precious with your work. Because that is also another creativity killer, to be precious with your own work.
Because I say it a lot, and I am probably the least capitalist person on the panel today. Like, I really am not into all that. But if you're going to be a part of the industry requires publication. Like, the difference between being a hobbyist writer and a professional writer to me is, did you publish? I don't care how you published. Did you publish? And given the way people are able to make money on like Royal Road and a lot of those other places, Radish, like, if there was a way to make, I don't even care about the money. If you're publishing on AO3, you are a published writer in my book. Mm-hmm. Most writers will never have the courage to show their writing to another human being.
My poor AO3 audience. They've been neglected for a year.
Yeah, but I'm sure they'll be really excited when they find out it's because you're now putting out something they can hold and something they can show to others.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, I love AO3 too, but there is a certain amount of prestige to just go, I can go buy it on Amazon.
Right?
Yeah.
Like think of all those book promos, that you've been seeing, like, where people are proud of the books they have, that they're showing off books they like that are like permanent on their shelf and that sort of thing. Of like, they like that. They like to go, look at this cover, and then put it on TikTok and Instagram and whatever. They like it.
Yeah.
They're going to appreciate you.
Because that's the first rung of success as a writer, is having the courage to hit publish.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have a friend who has actually gotten a publishing contract with a big name publisher and is so, like, he probably will lose his contract this year because he's so precious about this book, and it was inspired by somebody else's work, and he is basically holding out for them to get basically the imprimatur of the person that inspired the book. He's so precious about it. And it's a great book. I've read the book. It is a beautiful book. I wish everyone could read it. But he's probably going to lose his actual publishing contract because he's afraid to put it out there without that seal of approval. The great thing about the world we live in right now, there are no gods, there are no kings. You don't need anyone's seal of approval.
Exactly.
Not even yours. Just hit publish, go.
I mean, look at Megan.
Like it says, there's a reason I was a book blogger. It has all to do with showing off your book collection. I agree. Yes, Eva, is this title not just totally bringing out all the editors who are subscribed? We did it on purpose as a joke of like, this is why you need an editor, is look at this terrible title.
Because if I can just say one more thing to Laura. If Jace did not read you for filth, you wrote a good book.
I will fucking that one.
I love Jace. Jace is very professional, and I'm not wanting to go against his professionalism. If you did not get back a secondary novel of all the changes that you need to make for this to be readable, you wrote a good book. He does not hold back on his criticism. He has done some work for me, and anything that I did that was dumb or stupid or bad, you better believe, like, you have a moment to do a video chat real quick? Like, can we just, what in the world?
I need to take you to the library real quick.
Oh, yeah. Like, he would quote text it to me and be like, explain this to me. Why did this happen? And I know we have a close friendship, and we have a friendship and whatnot, but that's how he is. Like, he will tell you, because he does not want his name on something that is bad. If he did not tell you, oh God, this is terrible, It's
Ew.
not terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So just the
Amen.
fact that you're not sitting here going, he sent me back this, look at this, it's bigger than the actual book of changes that he made.
No, mine's 14 pages
Yeah.
for 105 stories.
That's really
Let
not
me
bad.
put it this way. That is shorter than the brief I got back on Raid, which is a much shorter book.
Not bad. So,
You did good.
I like some of his notes. Disturbing in all the right ways.
that's good.
See,
That's
there's
good.
compliments in there too. So
Yeah,
No.
Jace does not just compliment.
Yeah. And
If you
so
get a
like when you're doing,
compliment, you did something right.
but you change this a little bit and talk about going and doing your own editing.
Mm-hmm.
Just, I did want to bring up just in the real basics of how do you get it done. I found both in writing and in photography, editing works best finding your process. And what your process means is you have steps set out that you do in this order. And so I found for a lot of people, like their first edit, just go run through and see all the grammar changes some program wants you to do. You will now have edited your work, and it does give you a little sense of accomplishment, but it also shows you like where, do I have all the time references correct? Do I have, people referenced correctly in my things? And then go back through and now do it for, your next step can either be for the major story arc, or is it, you want to look in one chapter and, did the chapter actually flow from beginning to end like you want?
Mm-hmm.
Start looking at little sets that you can divide it up into. Is it making that?
I saw a new tip on editing, which was edit backwards.
Yep, I was just about to say that.
So just literally start from the back of your story and literally chapter by chapter or even sentence
Paragraph
by
by paragraph.
Yeah, sorry. Paragraph by paragraph. And literally edit backwards till you get to the front and then reread out loud the whole way through while editing as you read out loud if you notice anything that's off. Because you'll notice like literally anything from an extra space to why is there an and there or there needs to be an and there or whatever. You'll notice. But yeah, I saw a new tip about edit work backwards because it makes you look at the story in an entirely different light.
Yep.
Yeah, Eva says line editing is good backwards, paragraph at a time. Exactly. So Eva says the notes are all about making that story better. The more pages, the better, so long as you like your editor and respect them. So like it's just
and
you're not going to figure out your process till you do it a bunch.
Yep.
And not on the same project either. I'm talking about when I say do it a bunch, you have to do it on a bunch of different projects till you kind of figure out your personal workflow. And I know since you work in a different creative medium as well, you actually, all artists, especially in visual mediums, have a workflow because of the software they're working in.
Yeah.
So you have a workflow in a different format, in a different style of creative work.
Yeah.
But you have a basic familiarity with how workflow works versus somebody who is essentially, this is their very first creative endeavor and they're really not familiar even with the concept of a workflow. Oh boy, does it drive me nuts when I'm helping as an editor with a new creative person and they've never even cooked before. So they really have no concept of how workflow is. And so I'm having to like teach them the concept of workflow. But since you already have that, you're already halfway there.
Yep.
We have pipeline diagrams of like,
Yes.
Here's where this comes from, and this is what happens next for work.
Writing is the similar,
Yep.
except that you have to map it out yourself. You're inventing the Laura wheel for how to get from point A to point B with B in your mind being published, or maybe it's Z, whatever. And you're figuring out how to invent the Laura wheel versus I know how I have already invented the glory wheel. And perhaps it'll be different when I invent the new, like, the glory science fiction book wheel versus the glory short story science fiction wheel.
Oh yeah, science
They
fiction
all-
and fantasy have very different editing methods.
Yeah, mind mapping isn't just brainstorming.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
all the editors have a bunch of comments about this specifically.
they're all here.
Yes.
I knew this title was going to bring out your editor.
I'm like, they've all got comments about this situation though.
Let's see. Jenna says logically it should still make sense forward and backwards, point from point. It's a great way to, look for plot holes.
Check.
Oh, check. Also, asking what was the secondary character really thinking without considering the main POV is worth a help. Reading good craft books on the rest time between revisions has really taken my edits to the next level. Oh, that's a very good tip. I like that.
Yeah.
Dissecting the story for beats / plot points / outline points is also a great self-editing method. Oh, that's a very good tip too. Creating the story Bible after the story is how I do that part. Oh, very nice.
Yep. Same.
I will write the query letter and see what did I need to change from my actual text to write the query letter to make it even more hooky.
Mm-hmm.
And then go through and edit the story to make it that more hooky.
And that's important stuff because most editing is going to have certain phases that you will need to go through. You have your developmental stage where don't worry about the spelling, the grammar. Like if you see something and it's bugging you, fix it, but don't care if the sentences are right yet because you might completely cut that chapter out or add a completely new one in. It's just a story. Does the story make sense? Are all of the parts here that need to be here? Do you need to write that thing that you just alluded to between chapters? Not calling anybody out on screen, but that was a very good example of that on somebody's stream the other day. Making sure that you have the story down first, then pretty your language up. Is it as flowery as you want? Is it as dark as you want? Mood, while it does impact your story beats, should be a second or third level in. Are you capturing the mood, the atmosphere, doing that level of editing? And then your last level of editing is the text right? Are the commas in the right place? Did I use a semicolon that's going to make everybody hate me? Because, that's one of my big problems.
Did you slip in an interrobang?
How many end dashes am I going to allow to survive into the final document?
Oh, God. For me, it's deleting all the ellipses.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God. I am of that age where it was
Yep.
all ellipses. And I personally blame Pierce Anthony. That is who I'm holding responsible. I read too much Pierce Anthony when I was young and impressionable, and he has ruined me. Since now the young people hate ellipses. Okay, whatever.
But that's the three major stages that you're going to go through. And how you do that is really going to depend on how you write a story. How is that going to work for you? A lot of the stories that I write, I find that I need to do them inside out. Because I'm really good in my first drafts of making the saggiest middles. Like just the saggiest of saggy middles. Of just putting in all the things that slow down everything and drag everything down to nothing. So
Charlie, I will make middles so saggy that even I don't want to write it anymore.
Right?
Like it will make me give up the will to write.
Yep.
That's how sag. Like it's like the little primordial pouch on cats. That's my writing, right in the middle there.
But that's where you're learning your process, though, is where do you need to put your first focus? Where are you going to find it most advantageous to do things? Like for me, I use ProWriting Aid for a lot of my self-editing, and I love their glue words thing. Do I agree with them on everything? No, but I am a fantasy fan of a certain generation that likes to have a lot of those. And shouldn't. Because even I realize that if your book is all the, it's boring. And you know what I'm talking about. Your Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, like
just passive voice.
Oh, I'm very
writing passive voice.
Oh God! Like, and then will the Lord not save me from myself? And then come, like
suddenly.
And you start finding those things.
You can pull suddenly and quickly from my cold dead hands.
Because one of the really nice things about like ProWriting Aid, and I know you can do this with Grammarly, and I'm not sure about other tools, but you can create custom rules. There are words that I use all the time that do nothing good for my text. I have custom rules so that when I load it up, the first thing it does on that first summary review is it highlights all of them in the most garish pink because I don't like pink. And I see them and I want to scream at the universe because, oh Lord, why is there so much pink in my book?
Yeah.
You can find your tools. That's finding your method. That's finding the thing that
Yeah,
works for
figuring
you.
out your workflow. Yeah, I do the same thing. I change all of the highlights to orange because I hate orange. I don't like to see orange looking at me. I want to destroy all the orange.
One
And
thing
it helps.
One thing I've found that helps me edit is have a computer read it to me because
Yep.
they won't correct it in their brain.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so you will find every word spelled as a different word. It's like, dang it!
This is, I know, easier to do on a Mac than a PC, but I don't know if you can. I think you can do this even with Google Docs, where you get to pick the voice. If you have a Mac, set the voice to David, because David is an old school computer reader voice that will talk very monotone and pronounce every syllable. And you will immediately hear all of your spelling mistakes because a syllable will be very noticeably missing, or extra syllables will be very noticeably there. You will notice your grammar mistakes because all it knows is I see comma, must pause for half of a second. I see period, must pause for an entire second. So when pauses don't happen, you go, wait, why did you just rush on to the next thing? Oh, wait, I forgot a comma. Getting yourself down to those, if you can pick any of those really obnoxious, I mean, like Stephen Hawking talking machine, like old school voices. No, that's actually David. That's
Tell
David.
us
That's
how you
David's
really
voice.
feel, Jenna.
Just dragging David to the library.
Oh, it's not a pretty voice, but you will find every mistake you have left in that book because they stand out.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with the newer voices that are being brought in is they're using machine learning, so they're bringing in inflection, which can be helpful, because I noticed I accidentally put in a question mark because my robot all of a sudden started going up at the end, and I was like, what? Why are you up at the end? And also, she gets very excited if you're using a Mac. The robot gets very excited anytime you accidentally put in an exclamation point, and everything becomes yippee voice. Like, just yippee! Like, oh no, stop! Like, it gets really funny, and you go, oh, there's an exclamation point there. You just hear the audio marker of,
Yes.
oh, I didn't need that, and fix that. But yeah, computers can really help you out a lot. And find the one, again, that works for you. You might not need that really obnoxious monotone voice, but that consistent spacing, because every syllable takes the same amount of time for something like a David to say. Anytime there's an interruption or something feels rushed, you know that you messed the grammar up. So finding those little hacks that work for you is the biggest key into making this work, especially if you're unable to afford an editor, because especially if you're just starting out, be wary. Like, I don't want to say don't hire editors, but we authors, especially on our debut works, do need to do some ROI. Like, I hate to keep bringing business in here, but I know someone who is currently working on a book, and she has budgeted, I think, around $10,000 for editorial and covers and stuff. And then I explained to her exactly what the return on investment will be and how many books she will have to sell to make back that $10,000 and just break even. And she went, wait, what?
Mm-hmm.
Because royalties are a thing. So, be mindful. Oh yeah, she had high goals. Like, she thought that she was one of those people that got deceived by the public, that like the way you get rich quick is you become a writer. I don't know if you've seen this or not. This is the big get rich quick scheme on TikTok and on certain places on the YouTubes and
YouTube recommends all the time this crap. YouTube videos to me.
It is
Like,
not
I'm
a rich
assuming-
quick scheme.
I'm assuming my first book is going to be just like a vanity. It's not going to make money, but it'll get me out there. So I'm just making it the best it can, so it sets the precedence.
Oh no, that's fine in and of itself. I'm just saying, like I said, she budgeted 10 grand. Like, she's been saving up 10 grand, and I'm just like, Are you hiring a famous artist to do your cover? What are you planning on spending 10 grand? You wrote a tiny little novella. There's nothing that should cost
10 grand for a novella?
Oh yeah.
Holy smokes!
Oh yeah. Like she really did not. In my local friend group, I'm the one that always has to give the talk of, so you think you're going to make money as a writer? Let me explain how this works.
Ugh.
Not that it's impossible. Please don't think I'm saying that. I have made some good money over the years off of my books, but
I mean, given like even the trade pubs aren't very good at predicting what will really make them money without them having
12
to spend a
copies
lot
a
more.
year? The average book in trade pub sells 12 copies a year. That's
I
a
thought that
one.
got debunked.
Did it?
I thought it did.
Because that's
Nice.
one copy a month to sell.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
Anything you want for 10K.
right?
right?
Eva's
I
like, I will edit your rear.
I don't know what she
Tell
thought she
you
was gonna
all
get.
what to fix on your bottom. For
I
10
honestly asked if she just wrote an outline and was hiring a ghostwriter. Like I was just like, what are you planning all that money for?
Hell, you can hire a ghostwriter for less than $5 grand.
Yeah,
But-
say like
Yeah. You have to think about ROI at some point.
Hey, Nia.
And when we're talking about return on investment, that has to be the time and energy you're putting into a project. It's fine if you want to be a Tolkien that only puts out a couple books in their lifetime, or if you're working on your one good book, your To Kill a Mockingbird, like your one book, right? To spend a lifetime working on it. That's fine if that's who you want to be. If you want to have a bunch of books out, they have to go out. And that's what you have to develop your editing schemes for, is how can I feel comfortable putting this out into the world? Because it's about being comfortable. It's not about being perfect. It's about being comfortable with it. You know it will never be perfect. And dear God, if you don't think it'll ever be perfect, pick up any big name author and just scan for typos.
oh no. If you want to talk about like truly never perfect, even developmentally, go look up what is it, the little the little tween 10-year-old Moriarty
Oh yeah.
with the elves.
Yeah.
Oh, Artemis Fowl?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
thank
I
you.
love Artemis Fowl.
Go look at each book in the Artemis Fowl series, and they have literally retconned 50% of the entire world building they did in the previous book. Each book. Because they were still figuring out who they wanted to
And that's
market
a
this
Chad
to.
publish. You know, like,
But they would literally retcon
do
half
not
the
let
story.
this perfectionist thinking ruin your good time. I still hold to, even in business, if you're not having a good time, you're doing it wrong.
I mean, there's one way to kind of get you to
Genesis,
understand.
I have my students edit newspapers for extra credit / replace quiz. Oh, that's a good one. That is some subversive stuff right there, ma'am.
But that's the thing. We're here to tell stories, not to ship perfection.
Right.
If you are not considering yourself a storyteller first, please rethink yourself as a writer. You are a storyteller first. You are that person. I feel like the banner's about to go back up. You're that person sitting around the fireplace, around the fire, telling stories and entertaining people to get through the cold, dark night. That's what your job is, to keep people entertained.
There it is.
It's what I do.
Really, we
But
need an emoji to go with this.
your job is to keep people entertained. It's not to do things perfect. Perfection is the enemy.
Perfection is the
most
crap,
of-
babe.
Professionalism is
perfection
knowing
is
when.
perception. Nothing is perfect.
By the way, I did type in the diacritical mark. It just refused to save it. I know how to spell cliche.
I know how you spell. It's okay. The editors here will forgive you. Truly, this has become a support group meeting of editors.
But the purpose of all of our writing is just to entertain people. And
Yeah.
as long as
We
you're
are
doing
here
that,
to make
you-
this existence a little less painful for a few minutes. That is literally what our job as writers is. When you're reading our stories, you forget about how difficult your life is for a few minutes. That is our job.
And Eva is absolutely right.
Which one?
She said writing is a practice that improves both writing and editing, just like reading improves reading, writing, and editing. And the one before that, the writing short fiction one, with strict word limits, prompts, or words to include can help too. I've definitely found that helps. Because with a novel, usually you write 60,000, 100,000, 250,000 words, and then you go back to the beginning and start editing. That could be years between starting your first draft and starting your first edit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big turnaround time of just working on the first draft. But if you do short ones, that practice speeds up immensely of, okay, I'm writing a drabble, 100 words, got to tell a story. And it has to be exactly 100 words, so I have to pick my words extremely carefully. And there's a prompt or something like that I'm trying to like wrap this around. And just doing that over and over can help you just cycle through your editing so much faster and get you to start experimenting with your prose and leveling up and expanding out to flash into short stories as well. Those still have much shorter cycles to get to the editing.
The dopamine. You get
Yeah.
much more frequent hits of dopamine, which will help you be motivated. Absolutely.
I did want to, since Eva mentioned it real quick before we go to break, because we really do need to go to break. But she brings up about if you start to feel like you're not good enough or you're an imposter, you know, the infamous imposter syndrome. You know, she says stop hanging out with writers for a week or read a book or talk to readers. It helps a ton. But also, here's the fascinating thing we have verified in science on this. If you feel imposter syndrome, this means you're finally getting competent.
Yep.
That is the weird secret. If you're not feeling imposter syndrome, you are not yet that competent at this. Once you start hitting imposter syndrome, you are competent to do this now.
Your eye has been refined to see the flaws that you couldn't see before.
Yep.
And now you are able to see them and try and fix them, and then your eye refines even more, and you're like, crap, there's all this other stuff too.
Imposter syndrome is kind of the opposite of Dunning-Kruger.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think it is the other side of it, the seesaw.
But it's a good thing if you feel like an imposter. That's actually a good thing. That means you're doing it right. Mm-hmm. Congratulate yourself and be happy.
You deserve a good pat on the back for it.
And before we go to break, just one thing. My first book came out in 2005. Most of the books I've come out with, I thought were the end of my career. Like, this is the dumbest thing that I'm going to do. Like when I wrote my first book with a gay protagonist, when everybody in the industry was telling me not to. End of my career. Write my my drag queen fairy tale book that nobody's ever going to read. Every time I thought it was going to be the end. This is the dumbest thing that I've ever done. That is just part of you trying to hold yourself back. That is how resistance talks to us. Most of the time when we're like, this is the dumbest, stupidest, worst decision, and it's not something that will actually harm you. I'm not saying don't listen to that voice when it's something that will actually cause you physical or mental harm. But when it's just something like this, it's usually your resistance trying to keep you from doing the thing that you need to do deep down inside. And you have to push through that. The Santa Closet that I'm working on right now, I feel like is the dumbest book idea I have ever had, which is why I will be releasing it as a Vela as I write it. Because I am not going to let myself stop it from going out into the world. It shall be free into the world. But don't give up. Don't give in to that resistance. That's all that it is. You're trying to grow. You're feeling the burn in your muscles. Just push through. Put it out.
All right. Well, we're going to go take a little short breaky break. And when we come back, I assume there'll be more of the chaos.
I'll be late getting back. Roy needs to go outside.
Okay. Roy's going to go find street bread. And we're just going to keep talking about these two sides of another seesaw, which is self-editing and working with other editors to refine your work. We're just going to keep talking about it. I have no idea what we're going to say. But we will see you back here in approximately 10 minutes. Again, I would like just a little quick PSA. Have you had a snack? Do you have something to drink? You know your brain needs liquid. Did you know that? Your brain needs water. Or something that water is in, like tea or coffee. I'm just saying. We'll see y'all back here. What?
Juice.
Juice might be nice. A little sugar in there to help keep because your brain does need glucose. You're right. So we'll see y'all back here in approximately 10 minutes.
You're welcome. Have chai tea now.
So many duets I need to record.
So Tom went to go check the smoked meat situation, and it needs to be taken out, so it doesn't overcook. So he is removing 10 pounds of smoked chicken quarters and 5 pounds of smoked pork loin. So he will join us right after he has brought the meat inside, so that the aroma can drive me insane for this next hour.
So I egg washed the beautiful, beautiful bread and got it ready for the oven. Brian has been making French onion soup all day. All day. It's like an old school, real French onion soup.
So your house smells like a bistro?
Yes.
And it smells like death.
Yeah, it would be lethal to cat, but oh my God.
But amazing. It'd be a beautiful way to
I
go.
feel like I am living in a French bistro, and I'm kind of okay with it.
I actually messaged Brian because I bought a brisket on a really good price.
Oh, very nice.
Like, I got a brisket like this big for like $18.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, I might need your help.
Yes.
You have access to a pressure cooker.
No, because my dad never took that Instapot to my mom.
It's still a sore point for Kat because both of her parents and their spouses keep thinking that they've given Kat all the essential household equipment, but in fact, they've given it to her other siblings. So
Everyone but me.
Everybody but Kat has received the appropriate appliances in Kat's family.
Instapot and an air fryer.
I feel like this is a lesson to Kat that you need to squeak louder, babe. But anyway, Megan says, "Oh, I wish I was there to help you consume some of those chickens." Oh, I wish you were here too, Megan, because Tom's smoked chicken is the best smoked chicken I've ever had in my entire life, and I hope you all understand that since he is my little brother, I would rather throw myself on a sword than compliment him in an unearned way. He has to hardcore earn the compliments from Wah, and this is the best smoked chicken I've ever had in my life. And I live in Mississippi, the land of smoked meats. We have brought the smoked chicken to several big events in South Mississippi, to which every time people ask, what restaurant did you buy this from? I need to go buy a whole bunch. And the disappointment on their face of, oh, he made it himself, so I can't buy it. And I'm like, I don't know. He might be able to sell it to you. Okay, Tom wants me to show it. He has brought me the platter. Okay, y'all ready?
Here's your mountain.
Ready? Okay. I can do this.
Yes.
I want to. I'm going to just slowly rotate it.
I want that real crunchy piece right there.
Yeah, there's something for everybody here. Whether you like it just very lovely tanned or you want it crunchy.
This is almost too much, because while you're doing this, someone who shall remain nameless and without praise brought in a taste of the soup to see if he could make me when Harry met Sally in the middle of the stream. You will notice that my mic did go mute for a little bit.
Hey, Tom.
Yeah?
Cherry said, I don't know why they don't just court him or marry him. Cherry, are you starting to get how Tom and I get so many proposals? He's starting to get this.
I'm saying, here's the...
And Megan says, yummy, I want it so bad. Okay, all right, let me do it. All right, now prepare thyself for the smoked pork loin.
I want it.
So we need teleportation machines, because I'm looking at that and thinking of that with what's in the kitchen right now. Like, this would be one hell of a meal.
Oh, that looks...
Look at the loveliness. Isn't she beautiful? Look at
I
she's
want
so
it.
beautiful.
And
like this is all glistening juices. This is just straight out of the smoker. Nothing has been done. We have not brushed her with apricot preserves or anything.
I feel like this is how we know there are no vegans in the chat, because I feel like somebody would have been like, is this what Satanism looks like?
Is this sort of come to the dark side? We have smoked meat, freshly smoked meats, hot off of this out of the smoker. Everett says that's so delicious. That looks so delicious, Tom.
Thanks.
So yes, that is why Tom is not on the screen. He had to go acquire meat. They had reached their temperatures.
Yeah, the directions I was looking up were saying to put it for another hour or two. It's like, no.
People overcook smoked meats, and it's sad.
People overcook most things.
But yeah, like if it reaches temp, we good, you know?
I don't know.
Cherry says I would have to fly so far. Cherry, you need to come.
But in the end, it would absolutely matter.
Ply you with smoked meats. You will have to roll back to the airport one day when you're like, I guess I need to go back to my life. And we'll be like, can't you transfer your university credits here? We have an internationally acclaimed university. We have two, technically. 2 universities here. I want everyone to move here and make Mississippi better and also eat better while you're here.
Hopefully we will win the lottery so I can start my true archvillain lair and move all of this here, because like we will never actually get to do any of the archvillainy because there will just be too much food and we will all be sleeping off our food comas. But
I mean, you ever notice arch villains, you rarely get any good looking food? Like they're always in pursuit of something delicious and they can't find anything delicious.
why do you think they're always up for the villainy?
I'm saying, come here. We have the meats.
But yeah, versus like I always find it weird, since to me, this is the most basic way to smoke barbecue
Mm-hmm.
meat.
Mhm.
It's
This
real
is the
basic.
traditional Mississippi way to do it. That's how we do it. And it is freaking amazing. But it's also not actually that difficult. Now, granted, our smoker is literally out our back door. Like it's on the little landing. So it's not like we have to like trek to another field or something.
Yes, but if you did, you'd have a full-on smokehouse.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that
You
you
better
rebuild
believe if
every
Tom
4 to
wasn't letting
5
us
years.
order it and you had that much meat.
If I had the money, we would have brisket and then we would corn it and then smoke it in the traditional way to make pastrami. Because
You're
that's what
speaking my
I
love
want.
language right now.
I tried to click on it for you.
No, click it. All right, it's your turn. Never thought I would. I mean, baby, come. I will feed you. And I will also take you out to all the sites, which are corny, but they are fun. If you're on Facebook, Tom and I just went to this spooky drive-through, a mile of inflatable Halloween drive-through vignette stories. Let me have it. Yes, you all need to come. We need to have a writer's retreat so that we could just feed you all. You may not write anything, but at least you will be so freaking full while you are here. I want to ply you all with food, baked goods, which I did just make 7-layer magic bars with a bonus 8th layer. And
There's a reason that as the conversations about the board retreat is coming up and the big meetup next year, I'm just like, I know caterers that we can bring in on this because selfish reasons.
yes, who doesn't want to be well fed? Especially, I really believe creatives need to be well fed to truly create. To be at that top of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs is you need to be not just fed, but well fed. Because if your mouth or your stomach is a little sad because all you have to eat are sad foods or plain foods that do not excite you, it's hard to get excited about imaginary characters. It's hard. You have to put extra adrenaline in.
This is everything that's wrong with modern American politics. I'm just saying. It's a bunch of well-fed people that are sitting there in their houses complaining about fictional characters. Like, how good is your life? I'm sorry. I don't have the energy to care.
Mm-hmm. Yes, let me feed you all and make you delicious coffees and smoked meats and baked goods and baked breads. And then write me stories.
Brian, do you think one of your lawyer friends that needs a tax haven will help Gloria and I start a bakery? We can lose them all the money they need to lose.
Will they help me have a cafe?
Yes. Because, I mean, like, what is a cafe but a bakery with, like, coffee machines, right?
Right?
Yeah.
A coffee bar, a coffee counter.
And like a selling point can be like it's a young 20-something-year-old wants this.
They got energy. Just saying. We all need to get together.
Excellent tax write-off right there.
And I need to cuddle Roy and Sasha and then, glare at the cats the way they like.
And like, when you found the foods that are making you happy, because you're like, I can put this on anything and I'll be happy.
Mm-hmm. I really do think like part of being a creative is being able to secure a good source of food you want to eat in order to help bolster your creativity.
Which is actually really important to the conversation that we're having.
Yeah.
Because I will tell you right now, if you are hangry, do not edit. You will make mistakes. You will make all of the biggest mistakes.
True. I mean, you do bring up a really strong point. But that's why, like, when I send care packages to y'all, there's food and then, there's crocheted things. Because also, if you're cold, you're not going to write well. You're not going to edit well because you're so cold. It's hard to focus and your muscles hurt.
There, I just reshuffle my budget. I'm getting groceries tomorrow.
Good. I want to eat well, Laura.
I'm living off of chicken tenders and French fries right now.
I mean,
Are
that's
you
not
my
so
husband?
bad.
What's wrong with that? That's something normal about it.
But yes, I have my gloves because it's hard for me to write when my hands are cold or even when the rest of me is cold and I keep shaking. I don't know if anybody gets that cold like I get that.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
But we've already established we're somehow the same person.
But I mean, like, I feel like these are important parts of editing.
Mhm.
Is you need to feel warm and safe and well fed.
You
And-
gotta get vegetables.
Seriously, your gut will thank you.
Yeah.
I would also recommend
by the way,
Serving
Laura,
isn't
now's
good.
a wonderful time to order apples. Tom
Yep.
got me a sack of the most amazing Honey Crisps. And I have been eating a Honey Crisp a day. It's so good. It goes with everything. Also, fun fact, what's a great dip for your sliced apples?
Caramel.
Pure sour cream and a little bit of brown sugar. Stir it in. Let it sit 3 minutes. Stir again, because then the sugar will have melted. You will thank me. Optional cinnamon. Tell them, Charlie.
Do you know what we're going to be doing later?
And also, I would like to advocate everybody, please don't buy sour cream that has more than 3 ingredients. You need the good sour cream. Daisy is it's good everywhere. Daisy's wonderful. But there are other sour creams that also have a very small list of ingredients. Please only get the pure sour cream and not the adulterated stuff with emulsifiers and things. They're putting those emulsifiers and those other starches in because it's low quality cream. Please use the good quality cream. You will be happier. Your gut will be happier. It's pure sour cream, a couple spoonfuls on your plate or your bowl. You just pour like 1 spoonful of brown sugar or turbinado or demerara. And yes, of course, you can use honey or maple syrup or even plain white sugar. Yes, delicious maple syrup. And then optional, a little bit of cinnamon to go with your apples, but you don't have to add cinnamon if you don't want to. Stir that up, leave it for 3 minutes, then stir it a little again, and all the sugar will have melted into the sour cream. You will thank you later.
Or just make your own creme fraiche. It's remarkably easy to do. It is very delicious. You can choose the level of fat that you want it to have, and there are things that you can do with milk protein for how creamy you want it to end up being. You can make your ideal thing. It's really easy.
Yeah, you can actually even purchase powdered heavy cream and make uber heavy cream. Let's see, Jenna says, and now I know how to use up some of the Maine maple stuff the father-in-law sends. Yes, you do, ma'am. You're very welcome.
You know, one of my favorite sandwiches.
What is your favorite? Tell me. Or one of your favorites.
So we have an art museum at the college I went to. And they had a cafe at the museum. And you get a croissant with turkey and cinnamon cream cheese and apple slices in
Oh, that sounds
the
so good.
sandwich. Oh,
Okay, yeah, that does.
Mm-hmm.
turkey and apple and cream cheese and cinnamon and just croissant. Yes.
And you can use goat cheese in place of cream cheese with a little bit of cinnamon on that. It's also really good.
Yes.
Yes, please, writers, eat well. It will improve your output. I promise
So-
this.
I took Rye on the walk.
Yes?
The
Did you
bread,
try bread?
the bread bakery place just up the street. It finally opened.
Woo!
Yay!
Did you get some bread?
Did you get yourself some non-street bread?
I could get myself some croissant,
Oh,
Get a little croissant?
maybe some enamel bars.
Yeah, maybe you could also then order a little bit of turkey and cream cheese and apples in your grocery store order and make your own little sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's
Yeah,
what I
baby.
want for my birthday breakfast. Maybe you should make me a homemade fresh croissant. I know you can.
Do you want to know what my favorite breakfast is?
What's your favorite breakfast?
We have it every Christmas. It's creme brulee French toast. So you have this big dish, basically, that you put thick sheepherder's bread,
Mm-hmm.
and you make the creme brulee caramel sauce,
Mm-hmm.
pour it over all the bread, let it sit in the fridge overnight. When kids wake up to get their stockings, they pull it out of the fridge and turn on the oven. And then when it's time to do the presents, you put it in the oven. And then you flip it, and all the caramel sauce just goes all through, and you eat it with whipped cream and peaches.
That sounds like
Decadent.
That's so good.
Y'all eat breakfast?
I have no choice.
Yeah.
I have to eat breakfast. It's part of my medication requirement.
I mean,
Sure.
I'm nursing mine. But yeah, like in the deep south, we have bread pudding for breakfast a lot. Because
Bread pudding, French toast with mascarpone cheese and pears. Oh my gosh, it's so good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Y'all talk about food, and I'm like, I was too broke for that.
It was
You
at
would-
the
you might be
Lockhart
surprised,
Cafe up
like,
here.
Like, I just want to point out a lot of these
Also,
foods that we're
small
talking about,
town that didn't have nice things.
but like also these things are not actually necessarily that expensive.
No.
Like you don't have to use mascarpone, although honestly, mascarpone, like here, what 8 ounces is a couple dollars. It's not even $5. It used to be $1.50 too, by the way, before the inflation. But like, yeah, 8 ounces of mascarpone, $1.50 is what it used to be. Now it's more than 3.
Have you met us, Megan?
Yeah, and the bread, again, I do want to point out, you can make bread at home. You'd be surprised how cheap flour is.
And it's fun.
It is fun.
I do think a lot of editing, it's in writing problems come from not taking care of ourselves. I really do feel like a lot of it is that
From not taking care of what?
ourselves.
Yes, I
That
agree.
we're so tired that
We
we just
neglect ourselves.
randomly hit characters and we come back and we have no idea what the sentence was ever supposed to be.
So my little brother served me my creme brulee French toast last Christmas.
You have a picture? Hold up, let me make it. Oh, that's sweet. I love it.
Yeah,
That looks so good.
it is. And we didn't have to do dishes after from all the paper plates.
So here's the thing I have found, and maybe y'all might notice it too. When I cook and bake, I find if I have a sticky wicket, is what I call when I'm writing or editing, and I'm not quite sure what is wrong, or maybe I know what is wrong, but I'm not quite sure how to fix it. The act of cooking or baking or cleaning or organizing helps me work through the problem in the back of my head without actively thinking about it. And so I do find that cooking and baking and cleaning and organizing actually are therapeutic for helping me work through my creative little sticky wicket. And that's again why I do advocate that everybody eat well and, take care of themselves.
Also, here, unlearn also just unlearn the lies of the last several centuries and the whole Protestant work ethic, which is just
Yes.
capitalism brainwashing. No, it really is. Like
It really is.
we have notes now to show it. Of what you call procrastinating is actually part of your process to work in a creative field. When you're procrastinating, it is often a way of your brain to take off, to switch your gears to something else while it tries to mull other options.
Over the
There's
last
nothing wrong with procrastinating.
over the last couple of years, I have basically instituted what I lovingly call my boredom day, which is there are certain things that I know that will completely distract me, and I will get so into them, but they don't actually let me rest. They don't actually let me recoup. So I don't play video games on those days. There are certain kinds of books that I don't let myself read because I'll get so wrapped up in them. My brain's not actually resting. I'm not rebuilding my energy levels. I can listen to music because that will help me out. I can do cooking. I can do this, that, or the other thing. But I do spend most of the day in a state of just kind of jolly boredom because I'm not doing the things that would make the day evaporate from me. But those are the days that I actually recuperate, and I find myself so much more well-rested and so much more capable of going out and doing things. I'm not binge watching shows. I'm not catching up on all the podcasts that day. I'm not using the parts of my brain that are tired from the work I was doing all week. And I can't recommend that enough. It has been such a wonderful thing to add into my time. And it's the one day, sometimes we have company and we talk and we hang out and it's fine. It's wonderful. It's fun. But I'm not doing those things that are just there for distractions. And I've started learning that a lot of the things that I've done over the years for distraction, they're actually engaging the parts of my brain that need to relax. And that has been fueling a lot of my burnout over the years. That's been fueling a lot of the just energy drain that I've been suffering, is that I'm in a creative mode so much with all of the jobs that I have. They are all creative jobs. And so that part of my brain is always problem solving. It's always trying to figure out, how does this work? How should we tell this story? How should we approach this thing, whether it's the marketing or whatever? You have to find a way to turn that off, whatever that is for you. That could be gardening. A lot of people find this through gardening, through baking, through cleaning, through whatever it is. I love to knit when I actually let myself buy yarn. Whatever it is that isn't engaging that part of your brain so it can relax, so that it can cool down. Like, I really do like, I'm going to bring it on again, aren't I? That idea of kind of thinking of the brain kind of like a computer. And if you're overworking and not letting things cool down, like, they're not going to function well. You got to let it relax. And really giving yourself that freedom. It's not just putting the story down for a couple weeks or something so that you have that space from it. If you're just constantly in that creative mode, you're going to use up all that energy. You got to refill that well. You've got to go back in there and top it back off wherever you find that. I know
my brain is very obsessive, and so
me too.
I will binge write for months, and then that will burn out, and then I'll binge read, and then that will burn out, and then I do nothing, and then I ease back in. Like, I should probably find a way to mix them all together.
Well, this is why, if anybody who's been following my streams for a while have noticed over the last couple months, I have started talking a lot more about the moon and moon phases and stuff. And it's not because I've become particularly more witchy than I've ever been in the past. It's because I realized I could put a moon phase app on everything. So no matter where I am, I can look over. It's on the corner of my computer. I can see that we're almost in the new moon. I load up my phone. It's right there on the screen. I can see what the phase is. And I've given myself certain tasks that during each phase, I need to be doing these things. This is what my focus is for each phase. So I'm giving myself that diversity that I need to have. I'm giving myself those breaks that I need to have. So I'm preventing myself from having the hyper focus that I was having before that was leading to the burnout. And my baby just came out of the oven.
Let's see your baby. Let me make. Okay. All right.
Oh, that turned out great.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
The baby just came out.
She's
Where's
so beautiful.
mine?
What a beautiful
So
hollow baby
shiny.
you made.
You didn't make twins? Where's mine?
Where's mine? Make it triplets.
If y'all lived closer, you would have so much bread, you'd have no idea what to do with it.
I would eat it.
I think you underestimate the amount of bread I can eat.
Yeah, and we had the hollow French toast. We had the last of the last hollow this morning as French toast for breakfast.
I hate you.
I finally got the plaiting right on this one.
It's gorgeous.
And by hate, you mean love, right, Kat?
No, currently I hate you. Because I can't have bread.
I'm so sorry, y'all.
Eva, I don't live that far away.
No, you don't. And the hubby's having a vacation week, so
Mhm.
we have so much soup.
Yes, Anna would be so chubby from good food. I agree. Like, yes, the baby would have by now discovered smoked meats. Y'all, like my dog lived 3 extra years just because of the smoked meats. Like, whenever she was having a bad day, like the arthritis was too bad, she just wasn't feeling well, and she didn't want to eat, Tom would fire up the smoker, and all of a sudden, that little tail would wag. She's like, I have a reason to live again. It added 3 extra years on Cassie's life just for the smoked meats, the promise of smoked meats. It is life-giving.
It really was, it turns out.
Mm-hmm. Just saying. But I think like there is something to be said for the joie de vivre of being full of the joy of life. And yes, that means being a little selfish and taking care of yourself, your body, your mind. And that includes doing the things you love or that give you a thrill. Whether it's walking in the woods or gardening or seeing your friends or eating decadent croissants. You know?
With chocolate, obviously.
Of course. I expect nothing less. You know, whatever floats your boat is valid. And I really like I've been
It's a murderous clown that floats your boat in a gutter.
No. Oh no. But like, I mean, like I've been saying, I feel like a broken record, and I don't mean to be, but it's like, why don't people want to adopt this of like understanding of? I promise you, it really will help improve your craft.
I've been reading a lot of theory books lately because I'm trying to understand some things. And one of the things they are talking about a lot is this idea of developing a sense of ironic sincerity. That this is kind of the armor of our modern time. And most of these books are actually looking at it descriptively of like, here's a thing that is happening. And when you look at what we're talking about here, that's what it is. I am entirely sincere with my writing. I love my characters. I love the stories I'm telling. These are messages that are deep from my heart. But I have kind of an ironic relationship with them that, you know, I don't really care if anybody else likes them. I don't care if they're the most perfect things in the world. And having that detachment, that little bit of, oh, did you hate it? Was it the worst thing ever? Okay. You know, learning to become playful in that way it's different from the sarcasm that Gen X and the millennials inherited from us, unfortunately. That we were just detached and cold and unfeeling and just sarcastic and everything sucks and everything's bad.
Oh, the sarcasm of the Gen Xers and even the elder millennials, like,
learning to develop the skill where, yeah, a lot of people are just way too full of themselves and need to just give it up. And a lot of times I can be too full of myself. And learning to have that moment. It's why I was joking, and Tom so wonderfully did the cliche thing on there. I don't need to take myself too seriously. And I don't want any of you to take me too seriously. We're here to have fun. We're here to talk about telling stories. And if you listen to a lot of things that have been in chat and that we've talked about on screen today, it's that sincerity is something we have. I think sincerity is something at the core of us as writers. We have stories that for whatever reason, we want to tell. We want to put them out there. We want people to see them. We want people to like them. But getting that level of ironic detachment that you need to have where it's just like, but if you don't, who cares? Like,
Is it in fact the importance of being earnest, Charlie?
Yes. But
do you know how many times my mother dragged me to this play? Anyway, it's actually a good story.
It is a good story, but it is the thing that when we're looking at like modern, the way a lot of the Zoomers are just getting stuff done, putting stuff out there at a rate of content production that I can't even fathom. This is how it's happening. This is the attitude that is very much in the zeitgeist right now. And it really helps me to have words to put us to it because I'm that kind of a person, which is why I read theory books.
Like, and I'll be the first one to say, yeah, no longer now in the 2020s, no longer do you as a writer need to pay an editor to have something people will spend their money on and not demand their money back after they read it. Like, the readership public is not demanding the level of polish that, for instance, the 1980s required in published works. That's partly why all these younger folks can put out this incredible amount of content and so quickly is they are not spending a tremendous amount of time polishing and editing whatever their content is. They're just putting it out there and, you know, what we would consider, oh, that seems so raw. You know what? That is what the public is fine with. Do not let I need to pay for a professional editor or I can't publish my work. Don't let that hold you back. Just hit publish. And you know what? You can always, if you want to hire an editor later and fix it later and then again, put out a revised edition. More power to you.
Which is literally my plan to do.
Yeah. I do not mean this in a sarcastic way. I mean, like, truly, more power to you. And I applaud your ability to pry the perfectionism from your cold, dead hands enough to press the frickin' button.
Okay, also, so Eva brings up a point that I want to bring back to last week about so long as you're ready for the reviews or ready to never look at the reviews, you can publish anything at all. And I want to bring back to last week of reviews are for readers. It is not for the writer.
For the writer.
And the writer should never read your reviews.
That's editing. That's for the writer. Reviews are for readers. Don't look at your reviews. It doesn't mean anything. What matters is, do people want to read your stuff?
Do you know every time somebody has criticized my work, most of the time I've never even known about it till somebody else had to literally hunt me down to read it out loud to me. And that is a real thing that has continually happened. And every time somebody has ripped my writing to shreds, do you know what I think about? And this is absolutely true. I think about the money that I have and how, oh, you can rip it to shreds because I already got my bank. Okay. Yeah. I got the bag. I'm good. Even when, I was still underpaid. I still got paid, baby. I got published and I got paid and they didn't. Mm-hmm. And that's what comforts me. And also because I tend to disagree with the reviews I get because they tend to be very personal and attack me personally. And I'm like, whatever. But because like, you don't know me. Like if my mother or Tom or, even my then husband had said that, it'd be like, oh, that's hurtful. Why have you not brought this up ahead of time? But the fact that these are people who've never met me in their life, I don't care what they think of me. But also, hi, yes, I have received cash already. I have, in fact, probably received your cash. You can say whatever you want about me now that you've given me cash. I don't care. I don't ever have to look at your face. Let's see, Eva says, because there is a target audience for it. There is absolutely a target audience. And you'd be surprised how much your target audience will absolutely lower their standards to have a good time with you. Because that's what a story is having a good time with somebody.
And sometimes, let's face it, the low quality is the standard. Like there are certain genres out there that I absolutely love reading, and we all know that they're trash. Everyone involved in this process knows that they're trash.
Mm-hmm.
And I have met people that are writing in said genres that are agonizing over their commas and absolutely no one will notice because
They
if
don't know
they're
the rules of commas either.
well, no, even if they whether they know or not, honestly, if your story is so boring they're paying attention to the commas, you're in the wrong genre.
Yeah, there's another
Because-
problem there.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
your problem.
There's truly a reader for every story. There is a genre for every writer. I mean,
Yep.
I was so surprised when I came across Bill the Galactic Hero, which
It's a real
is
book series.
purposefully written space trash.
It is space trash, y'all.
It is absolutely tongue-in-cheek, ridiculous, barely has a plot running through it. And it's just sort of making fun of these things, but it's just like, but it's the same with Terry Pratchett and Discworld. Yes, this started as mocking, but there's an audience who just enjoys this way of telling a story.
Yeah, it started off with satire, and it became its own sort of subgenre that people love. It's fine.
And you have no idea where your audience is going to be and what they're willing to pay for. A friend of mine introduced me to a story, I think it's called Journal from Another World, that's basically, quite literally, the very dryly written science field reports of these people that are going out and exploring an alien planet that does not exist, talking about all the alien life that does not exist. It has no plot. It has no story. It's just, ooh, really pretty plant. Let me tell you everything about it. And the guy who's
They
writing
wrote
that
one
is
just for
making-
you, Charlie?
the guy who's writing
That's
it
a
is
source
making
book.
$6,000 a month minimum on Patreon. He has 6,000 patrons, and his lowest tier is $1. He's making a minimum of $6,000 a month on Patreon. And you've probably never heard of this thing. You didn't know it existed. It found its audience, and he's making some money. He's making more than a lot of writers will ever make off of their fiction.
Yeah.
And it's posted to a Deviant Art channel because he hires an artist to make a picture of each of the pretty plants. And they're not even like high quality art, y'all. Like they're not even like they're not even high quality art. It's just people are really into what he's doing and the way he's writing it and the way he's putting it together, and they're supporting him. You don't know where your audience is. You don't know how they are going to want to support you. That's really the business nowadays, is figuring out where is that audience? How do they want to support me? How do they want to keep this crazy endeavor that I call writing going? Because when you start looking at the stuff that is happening and being supported by Patreon and Ko-fi outside of the publishing world, where we don't get to see them on the charts, like none of this is collected up. There are no books in this series. He just a couple times a month posts a new picture with this long, detailed botany report about the plant of the month. And he's making a bunch off of it. You have an audience out there somewhere. It's about finding them. That's why we talk so much about marketing. And this is where you have to know what the editing of your audience wants. Apparently his audience wants these really dry, storyless field reports.
Eva wiped monocle. What is high quality art exactly? Expensive?
Oh no, I'm a lot of these the images look like they were made in MS Paint.
Even better.
I'm just saying, like, I don't. The only reason to give this person money is out of sheer irony. Like, you have an irony budget of, fine, I'm going to give a couple bucks to this dude to keep it going, or because you're really into it. Like, it's not like any of the words that you would want to use.
Adobe Illustration has not been invented in this other world. They're
Oh,
still
yeah.
using MS Paint.
Oh yeah, it's rough. It is rough, especially the animal pictures are very like children's
medieval?
drawing-esque.
They sort of medieval, like, what is this weird?
Yes. And I'm not saying this to knock him. I'm just saying we struggle so much with thinking I have to have this certain level of quality. And then you look around at how people are actually funding themselves on some of these crowdfunding sites for their sincere art. Like, it's stuff that they love to do. Like, the people that make that stupid meat pit story are making so much right now. And it's a story about One day there was an earthquake and it opened up and wow, the earth is full of meat. There's not really a story there.
I've not heard this.
You've not heard this?
No, I haven't heard any of this, Charlie. Like,
there's a whole world out there of people.
There's a whole corner of the internet you know about that I don't know about, and I'm not surprised, but also surprised.
There are some ebooks that are like this.
But, like, my point is just, I bring it up because I noticed that it was something I was doing to hold myself back, to give myself an excuse to not publish, to not even share my work. And it's something I still deal with. It's something I still wrestle with this one. Where it's hard for me to take my work like legitimately. So instead I delay. I find a million reasons to not like polish it up and publish it. Some of my reasons are legitimate. Like I have chronic illnesses and I hurt a lot and it's hard to focus when you feel like crap every day and it's physically uncomfortable just to sit up and type sometimes, much of the time. And it's a struggle to even feed myself often. So there are legitimate reasons, but then there are illegitimate reasons like, but I need someone to edit this. And I can't ask my friends. They'll think I'm a burden, and then they won't want to see me, and they'll start avoiding me. And it's like, you are now in the loop, Glory. You're in the loop, and it's not a good one. So I think it is important for us as creatives to ask ourselves, am I using excuses to not move this project forward in order, obviously, like ultimately, is if the object is to share it, if the object is to have readers, versus if you just want to write for yourself, you definitely do not need an editor. If you are just writing for yourself, go right ahead. Absolutely. You know, later one day anthropologists may find your work hundreds of years from now and be like, oh, they had notebooks in a secret closet. And let us go over and try to figure out who this person was. And if that's what you want, more power to you. And I genuinely mean that. That is not sarcasm. Because, cool, give another anthropologist student something to get a doctorate on. Good for you. You know, hundreds of years in the future. Give somebody, some hopeful little young person, an opportunity to get their doctorate and become an expert in your notebooks. Cool. But if your goal is to have other people read it and share this world with you, or at least, you know, visit this world in their imagination, it is important to ask yourself, are you using excuses to delay sharing your work? And if there are excuses, are they legitimate or illegitimate? And maybe if you're not sure, reach out to your colleagues, your friends, and ask, is this legitimate? And I do not mean non-creative friends. Creatives live in a different kind of mental space than non-creative folks. Accountants just see the world very differently. And that's cool because we need those people in this world. But if you have never put out creative works, then you're really not familiar with how we can set up these little mental loops for ourselves. So that's just what I do want to mention. I have used but Tom, I can't afford a professional editor. And Tom's like, fine, teach me to be an editor. I will be your editor. Because he knows it was BS and he was calling my bluff and he was right. But also I inadvertently gave him some skills. Because I could teach anything to anybody, right? So it's cool to want to edit. I think it's great. I think it actually helps hone your craft. It's cool to hire editors because it's really fun. You're in this working relationship where somebody's going to also help you hone your craft, which is really awesome. But if you're using these road bumps to slow you down or make it practically impossible for you to accomplish the goal of having somebody else read it, it's definitely something to like take a long, hard look in that little, what is it? The little mirror gate and go, what are you doing? Are you trying to keep this writing secret again? Are you just trying to like make something for some anthropology student 300 years from now to get a degree? Is that what you're doing? Again? So just be aware of that. Because art is therapy.
That's why I like to bring up all of the weird projects out there that are like literally supporting their creators. Because you think your stuff's weird. Did you know about Mystery Flesh Pit National
Are you
Park?
aware of Ask Goblins from Auschwitz? This is a real traditionally published book.
Like, you have no idea.
And
what
they
is
have a
out
picture
there.
of the Ask Goblins on the cover, y'all. I had to ILL this book for a patron. Laura, let me type. I have to see. The writer does have a Twitter account. Because I'm like, what kind of mind is this person? They have other insane titles too, by the way.
Because what you think is the craziest idea that no one will ever care about. Oh, trust me, there is a community out there for you.
You see it? I have a feeling you saw the cover.
Oh my gosh!
Yes, you think that you're at the bottom of the barrel here? Every one of us thinks, oh, there's nothing worse than what I'm writing, and that's not true.
It's on sale for 50 Canadian on Amazon
That's
Canada.
why I had to interlibrary loan request this from about 48 libraries till I found one willing to load us the paperback for a patron about 7-8 years ago. And he's like, look, I need this book, but you're going to think this is a made-up title, but I looked it up, and it is a real book. And I'm like, okay, what you got? And he just slides the sheet across the counter to me, and I'm like, type. Oh, it really is real, and he has a Twitter account. Okay.
Do you know the name of another one of his books? Pickle's Apocalypse of Pancake Island.
Y'all, like, seriously.
It is a pickle person and a pancake person dancing in an apocalyptic environment.
And they sell these books.
Bust down the door and eat all the chickens, number 10. This is an anthology he's in.
Please don't let your thoughts prevent you from sharing your work with potential readers. Trust me, the standard is so low it's subterranean. You're doing great, baby. You're doing
Lost
great.
in cat brain land.
I might have to read
that
Christmas
cover is a wild cover. I'm just saying. There is no low too low for our world.
Leprechaun in the Hood, the musical, a novel.
Working as a librarian really taught me that I was just holding myself back, that all of my concerns were not legitimate. And then I got sick. I got really sick, and then that was a whole nother thing. But I just want you to know, I promise you, there are readers who genuinely want to read whatever wonderful, normal, dull, strange, insane, predictable story you have. It doesn't matter. There is a reader out there who wants desperately to read it. I promise you. No matter how dull and boring you think your stuff is, no matter how insane or unbelievable, or my readers will not be able to even wrap their brain around this concept. No, don't worry. Don't worry.
What are the reviews?
There's people want to read it.
Oh my gosh. Not a good book to take to your synagogue weekly book club.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is the least surprising review I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Despite the title, this book sucks. What?
Despite the title?
Okay.
Despite the title?
Yeah.
Apparently. So the Ask Goblins, some of them, their butthole is a portal to other teleportation worlds. I don't know. Somehow they escape Auschwitz through somebody's butthole. Like,
what in the Chuck Tingle is going on right now?
yes. Okay, good luck, Eva. Don't melt. So, I'm just saying, I definitely want you to edit because it'll hone your craft. You'll be prouder of your work as you feel more competent in your work. But also, don't let any of these thoughts hold you back from just hit publish. Just hit publish.
Just hit publish.
Just
Can
hit
I
publish.
recommend
The
if you want to
coronavirus
see?
went viral.
Can I recommend if you ever want to see like how much my writing changed?
Mm-hmm.
My fan fiction, because I have published 13 fanfics on fanfiction.net, 15 on Archive of Our Own. A couple of those are one like series of one shots in one work, so technically it's a ton of works in one.
Mm-hmm.
But fanfiction's the like it built my confidence in writing. And like without that, I would not be here.
Yeah.
I think everyone here started in writing fan fiction in some stripe.
I did.
I know I did.
So like if you're like, I have no confidence in this, try out fan fiction. Also, it's a world that already exists, so you don't have to worry about the world building.
Unless you want
like,
to.
Yeah, unless you want to change things or advance them.
And they already have wikis built, so you can learn how to spell things.
Yep.
Yeah. It's like it's a wonderful way to like build your confidence in your writing. It's in like the act of writing itself versus like having to build that confidence while also constructing everything yourself.
Sure.
And with fan fiction, there is a tag you can add. No beta, we die like men.
I love the tags. No beta, we die like, and then something from the fandom specific. Like for the Nancy Drew series, it's no beta, we die like Aglika victims. Forewarned and something. Forewarned and brutally, I think, is what it was. I'm like, yeah.
People have accused me of my first drafts being 12th and 20th drafts. Just publish the thing. Don't even worry. The world just wants it. They don't even care if it's edited. Just publish it. Okay? And please let me be the warning for you. So you're not like me, who's now middle-aged and still is not as published as like an incredible amount of notebooks. That, yeah, I'm trying to not like give an anthropology student a doctorate here a couple hundred years from now.
Or you are going to provide them with a doctorate because they'll have the original source material and the published material, and they'll be like, look at the changes! Let's analyze!
Oh, the changes between my first drafts and final drafts are stark.
Tony Stark?
No.
I wish they were genius, but they're not.
But yeah, like, edit if you want. You technically don't have to. There's no law. Particularly if you're indie publishing or you're publishing on, you know, platforms like AO3, you don't have to edit at all. You don't even have to send it through a spell checker. Although I would like to advocate as a teacher that you spell check.
Please.
You should definitely know your audience.
Yeah, I didn't know what editing was when I first started fanfiction, and you can tell. But then, like, I mean, one of my fanfics, you can see, like, because I'm still writing it. I have been writing it for 8 years. And in the, like, you can see, like, the drastic change.
Whether you're trying to hone your craft or not, you will, by just sheer number of words you've written, improve over time. Nope, you don't, Jules.
Not technically.
You can, but you don't have to. Because ultimately, it's about the fact that in the 2020s, you can publish it and then you can edit it after that. So that readers can already read your stuff. Those who are really thirsty for visiting your world can go ahead and get it. And then if you're later like, oh, I've had new conceptual developmental edit ideas, you can then go in and revise it, and readers will not be mad. They'll be like, ooh, bonus content. Cool. So
about 3/4 of my career has just been bonus content.
But I wanted to talk about, if you are interested in hiring an editor, what you need to know, because some people don't have confidence in publishing their work as is. And so it's like, fine, if you need this and you can afford it, Absolutely. Go ahead and hire the editor. If that will bring you that much closer to hitting the publish button, then absolutely do it. Whatever gets you to the finish line is valid.
We talk a lot in our house about what is a peace of mind purchase. Like, is it the right thing to buy? Is it the thing that we should be spending the money on right now? And it's like, will it save in all of the time you'll be delaying not having the thing by having it? So if it's something that really bothers you, if it's something that really bugs you and you need to save up money to pay for it, do it. Alleviate that suffering wherever you can. Make sure it goes away wherever it can. But if you feel like your story is fine, you know what? You're probably better than most stories that are out there. Because I a lot of the stuff that I read, especially in the genres that I do enjoy reading in, I find myself going more and more towards tie-in novels because at least people know what a story is there. There's a lot of stuff that's out there that's not what people are looking for. And that's where you need to be focusing most of your effort. Editing is important. Editing will help you figure out who your market is. But marketing is where most of your time should go. Getting the word out to those readers and where those readers are. If you have spent a year, 2 years, 3 years, I have one book that I've probably been working on for, oh God, I'm old. Never mind. Many years, like one half a cat. Let's put it to you that way. Over half a cat.
Yeah, that sounds legit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is a unit of measurement for writers. Yes, it is. That is an acceptable unit, an understandable. That's an international unit of measurement.
It is. Maybe the story should just be free. Just let it go. Let it out there into the world. Because if you're able to tell a story, you are going to have a wonderful time if you can get it in front of an audience. Because a lot of people are writing stories. Actually, let me take that back. A lot of people are publishing books that are not stories. They are convinced that they can make money in this industry because, again, there are a lot of scams out there right now telling people that this is a get-rich-quick scheme, and it so is not. Like, I don't know if anybody has an Audible account, but you may have noticed Audible got weird looking for about a week. They got rid of over 100,000 authors because they were, I'm not even going to go into all the details of the scam that they were doing to get their stuff on there. Let me just put it to you this way. No real writers were involved in the making of any of this product.
Wow.
Because they were trying to shovelware books into the world. And Amazon still has that problem, and they haven't figured out how to deal with it yet. If you can actually tell a cohesive story in any way, shape, or form that is interesting and entertaining, you are leagues ahead of the vast majority of content that is out there. That's all that is required of you.
So I would like to tell you a little story about peace of mind. And it is my personal experience. This was back when I had the video store. So I started the video store for 2 reasons. Tom and I specifically wanted to try out our business ideas in a sort of a workshopping situation, a laboratory sort of situation. However, neither of us could afford to get a business degree, let alone a master's business administration, because we thought that would allow us to test this out. It turned out that wasn't true anyway. So anyway, we were looking for a business to start. Specifically, I was looking for a business to start. And buying a sort of the reputation of a video store for literally $400 came up. And so fast forward, we've got the video store, we've got the lease, everything. Okay. I changed the name of the video store because the week before we were supposed to reopen, I realized I didn't want to be associated with these people. They were terrible, and then they were worse than terrible. I'm not going to get into that. But anyway, people kept warning me because the business was in a trailer on the side of a highway that this place got robbed every couple months, and that pretty much all the businesses for what, a 30-mile stretch along this highway regularly got robbed. Mostly it was breaking and entering and not armed robbery, so at least it wasn't violent. But I still was like, but I'm a tiny little business and I'm just trying out my business ideas. I can't even afford for us to lose a couple $100 for somebody to steal from the till. And I also, what I could not afford was insurance. In the state of Mississippi, you are not required to have business insurance. So we did not. Hell, I didn't actually know we were required to have a privilege tax license for like 2 years. But anyway, that's a whole other matter. So I was very stressed that the building was going to either get robbed or it was going to go up in flames. And all that was going to go, be a problem. Because there were also a lot of ne'er-do-wells in this area. It's just, look, everything you ever heard about hillbillies was this area, only there were no hills. So I was very stressed because I lived, 20, 25 minutes away from the video store. So, and that was one way. Any drive, it was like, it would take forever for me to just, anytime I'd wake up in the middle of the night and feel anxious of like something's happened at the video store and have to drive down there. It's a 1 hour round trip, y'all, just for me to like be able to go back to sleep in the middle of the night. And we just could not afford insurance. And then when I finally could afford insurance, they dropped me in 3 months because they felt that our business was too high of a risk because a tornado went through, which did not attack our video store. And yet they still dropped us. And I'm like, well, where's my refund then? And then did they give me my $1,000 back, whatever. So worthless. Go to hell, State Farm. So what gave me peace of mind? Y'all. There we were on a Saturday morning. One of my now ex-husband's favorite things to do, it was always his favorite thing to do since he was a little kid, just like it was my mother's favorite thing to do, was go garage sailing. And in South Mississippi, the garage sales are all Saturday morning. And so there we were before the video store opens, we're garage sailing. And we ended up, the way you have garage sales in South Mississippi is you actually used to put it in the newspaper, like in the classifieds. And because a lot of signage was illegal. So this one little classified in the garage sale section said a lot of science fiction stuff, a lot of D&D stuff. So of course, we're going to this one. And it was a guy who used to work for Gary Gygax, as well as he wrote for a bunch of Star Wars and Star Trek, like as a, what do you call it? Like a ghostwriter, kind of, whatever.
One of the tie-in writers?
Yeah, one of the tie-in writers. He did. So he had a whole bunch of memorabilia, and his wife said, this crap's got to go. And so among the things was a very battered, beaten up Luke Skywalker stand from the original Star Wars movie. You remember where he's on Tatooine and he's like in his little outfit? And it had been bent in half at one point because that was the only way he could get it from LA on the plane back to Mississippi. Okay. And so he was offering it for sale for like, I don't know, $10. So we bought Luke Skywalker because we figured we would just fix it up in the back so it would stand up straight and put it at the video store because back then I felt like you can't be a legitimate video store without standees. Y'all know what I'm talking about, standees? Yeah. Yep. So there's our Luke Skywalker. And for a while, Luke was in the main area, place of pride in the video store. Literally a week or two, because here was the problem. Everybody kept running into Luke, and he was a little too delicate to be manhandled this much. So Luke ended up by the little window in the front of the video store. Remember, it was actually a trailer part. It was a trailer. So it didn't have like a business window. It just had like these little windows. He ended up by the books shelves with the used books, just standing there. And what I did not realize was at night when all the lights are off, it looked like somebody was standing in the dark looking out the window in shadow. because so many customers started telling me. I drove by and I thought somebody was like robbing the place, but then he didn't move. And then one day we were driving from the coast to my house in the middle of the night. Don't ask. We were having fun. And I was like, pull into the video store. I want to see if it really does look like somebody's standing in the dark. Like if Luke Skywalker standing looks like that. And as we are sitting there parked, I may have been making out with my husband. It doesn't matter. We had a fun night. We noticed another car drove up and we were like, who's that? Are they just returning a movie? No, y'all. They had crowbars in their hand. They were going to go try to rob the video store. And then we literally are there sitting there because we had put the seats back so that we could like make out in the middle of the night on a Saturday night. And so they didn't see us. They thought the car was empty. And they're getting out of the car with crowbars. And I'm like, oh my God, they're about to rob the place. What are we going to do? And my husband's like, we're going to sit here quietly. We are not going to interact. They have crowbars. And I was like, and we're watching. And they only took 3 steps out of the car menacingly toward the video store. They see the shadow. They look to each other. And then they quickly scamper back in the car and drove away. And I'm like, Luke Skywalker really will protect our video store.
The Force is with you.
It's going to be okay. And from then on, I could sleep well at night, knowing there was Luke Skywalker to protect my video store from ne'er-do-wells and hillbillies. So I'm just saying, like, my point is you never know where you're going to find peace of mind, but it's not necessarily where you think you're going to find it, like with an insurance agent or with an editor. Perhaps your peace of mind is simply finding that one reader that you can go, hey, what do you think of this book cover? And at the point they go, I love it, you go, it's time to publish. Like, you never know where you're going to find that peace of mind. So be open to finding it in a few odd places. And also, Luke Skywalker will be with you. I think we still have him in storage somewhere.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. Anyway, which is that. Well, does anyone have any final thoughts before we wrap up for the evening? No, I think all my introverts are worn out. Okay, that's fine. I got to be honest, I cannot remember what we were supposed to do for next week's episode. So stay tuned. It's going to be wild. I will probably remember it by Wednesday. I hope.
Let's say, check us out Wednesday evening on Twitch, and you'll find out.
Yeah, come tune in on my Twitch stream, which is also the same name, Glory Writes the Blues, Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, and find out what it's going to be about. I will probably remember by then.
Otherwise, you'll have your notebook that is written in.
I didn't write it down.
Oh.
I think it was marketing promotion stuff. Oh, wasn't it book cover design?
I think so.
Oh, wait, that's what it was. Yeah, if we talk enough, it'll come to it. So yeah, next week we're going to talk about book cover design, something I am terrible at and know nothing about. I saw all of y'all's judgment, and you too, Charlie. I saw it just now, all of your sass, every one of you. I felt the sass, but you should still totally come, and everybody can tell me how I'm wrong. You know, the internet loves that.
You know, I woke up today and chose violence.
Well, I hope on next Monday you choose violence again and show up. Depending on your calendar. Because all I know to do is show y'all how to make bad book covers, but maybe it will inspire every one of you to do better than me.
I don't think I have anything new to bring besides what we did last time on book covers.
I feel like we could just revisit the same things.
Okay.
I mean, part of what we're really here for is to encourage everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as big a hurdle as your brain might be trying to say it is. All of this is doable. No one here is,
Also, what I can do is show you terrible book covers that traditionally publishers have put out, and everyone will feel better. That is one thing as a librarian. I have seen a whole lot of absolutely genuinely terrible and cheap book covers. So it's like, here's the bottom. You could definitely do this or better. But you could also just do this. You could literally do this. The known big name publishers from Alfred Knopf to Penguin Classics have put out these shit covers. And you can put out shit covers or better. So that is what I'll be bringing to the panel Monday. I don't know who will be here, but I hope more people will bring their own input as well. Thank you all so much for coming. I'm going to wave you all off. Mwah, mwah. Bye, everybody. Good night.